Hello there, and welcome to my channel. I'm so glad you found your way here today. Tonight we are going to spend some quiet time with the smallest people among us, newborns, those tiny arrivals who seem so utterly helpless and yet come into the world already knowing somehow exactly what they need. There is a gentle mystery in that, and we will follow it slowly, one small fact at a time, with nowhere to be and nothing to rush toward. So let your shoulders soften, let your breathing slow, and let the day you have carried begin to loosen its hold. And before we begin, if you enjoy what I share here, please leave a like and hit subscribe. It's how others find their way to this little corner too. There is no need to remember any of this. You can simply listen, and let the words settle over you like a warm blanket pulled up in the dark. Now let's begin. Consider a question that seems almost too simple to ask. Why does a newborn's blurry gaze reach only a little way before the world dissolves into softness? For years it was easy to assume this was a flaw, a set of eyes not yet finished. The truer answer is far more tender than that. A newborn sees most sharply at a distance of roughly 8 to 12 inches, which is almost exactly the space between a nursing baby's eyes and the face of the person holding it. Farther than that, and the room melts into gentle shapes and shadow. But at that one particular distance, a face comes into focus, the curve of a cheek, the shine of an eye, the shape of a mouth beginning to speak. This is not a weakness at all. It is a kind of aim. The newborn's vision is set, from the first hours, to find the one thing that matters most, and to let everything else fall softly away. When you hold a baby close and lean in, you are not simply being affectionate. You are placing your face into the only window the world has left open for it. And in that small window, the baby studies you, learning the first face it will ever truly know. There is something quietly moving in the thought that a newborn cannot yet see the wide, bright, overwhelming world, but can see clearly the one person leaning down to love it. The blur, it turns out, was never a mistake. It was a way of pointing the way home. Long before a baby opens its eyes to the world, it has already been listening. In the final months within the womb, the ears finish their delicate work, and by the time a newborn arrives, its hearing is already remarkably sharp, closer to an adult's than any of its other senses. Think of what that means. Inside that warm, dark, watery place, sound was never silent. There was the steady drum of a heartbeat, the rush of blood, the muffled rise and fall of a familiar voice, the low hum of the world outside filtering through. A newborn is not meeting sound for the first time when it is born. It is simply hearing the same world with the water gone. This is why a sudden loud noise can make a newborn startle so completely, arms flung wide, while a soft, low voice can settle it in moments. The machinery of hearing was tuned early, ready and waiting, so that from the very first breath, the baby could find the people around it by their sound alone. If you have ever spoken gently to a newborn and watched it go still, its eyes searching, you have seen this at work. It is not understanding your words. It is recognizing that a voice, a real and present voice, has entered the room. In a body where so much is still unfinished, the muscles, the vision, the very bones, the ears, arrive early and ready quietly, insisting that the first task of a new life is not to see the world but to hear who is in it. A newborn does not simply hear voices. It knows one of them. From the moment of birth, a baby can already tell its own mother's voice from the voice of any stranger, and it turns toward that familiar sound with a preference that was months in the making. That preference began before birth. In the last stretch of pregnancy, the mother's voice reached the baby not only through the air, but through her own body, carried through bone and tissue, felt as much as heard, steady and constant across the quiet weeks. By the time the baby is born, that voice is the most familiar sound in its entire world. Researchers have watched newborns only hours old work a little harder, suck a little differently, simply to bring back a recording of their mother rather than another woman. The baby is choosing. It is reaching in the only way it can toward the one it already knows. There is something deeply reassuring in this for you to sit with. A newborn enters a place that is new in almost every way. New light, new air, new cold, new hunger. And in the middle of all that newness stands one thing that is not new at all, a voice it has been listening to for months. That single thread of familiarity becomes a kind of anchor. When a mother speaks and her newborn calms, this is what is happening. The baby is not being soothed by a stranger. It is being met for the first time in the open air by someone it has quietly known all along. Scent is one of a newborn's quiet strengths, and it works from the very first hours of life. Long before a baby can focus its eyes on a face, it can find its way by smell alone. Placed on its mother's chest, a newborn will often turn its head toward the breast, guided not by sight, but by the faint particular scent that belongs to her and to no one else. In those first days, that scent is a map. The skin around the breast releases a soft, distinctive smell, and the newborn, with its eyes still barely working, follows it the way a traveler follows a familiar path in the dark. Studies have shown that a newborn will turn toward a pad worn against its own mother's skin, and away from a clean one, picking her particular scent out of the air. It is one of the earliest choices a human being ever makes. Imagine how much trust is built into that small design. A baby who cannot yet see clearly, cannot lift its head well, cannot speak or reach or crawl, is still handed one reliable way to find food and warmth and closeness, the simple ancient act of following a smell home. If you have ever watched a newborn nuzzle and root against someone it loves, you have seen this instinct guiding it. In a body that seems so unready for the world, the sense of smell arrives fully awake, whispering the same message again and again. This way, this is her. You are exactly where you are meant to be. It would be easy to assume that hearing or sight comes first, since those are the senses we most notice a baby using. The truth runs deeper and earlier than either. The very first sense to awaken in a developing human being is the sense of touch, and it stirs to life astonishingly early. Weeks into growth, long before the ears can hear or the eyes can register light. The skin around the mouth becomes sensitive to contact. From there, touch spreads slowly across the tiny body to the cheeks, the palms, the soles of the feet, until the whole of the skin has become a way of knowing the world. By the time a baby is born, touch is its oldest and most practiced sense, the one it has been living with the longest. This is part of why being held matters so much to a newborn, and why bare skin against bare skin can settle it so completely. You are speaking to the first language its body ever learned. When you hold a newborn close, you are not introducing it to touch. You are returning it to something ancient and familiar, the very first way it ever sensed that it was not alone. Everything else, the sights, the sounds, the tastes, arrived later, layered on top. But touch was there at the beginning, quietly mapping the edges of a small self. And so when a baby loosens into warm and steady arms, it is not learning comfort for the first time. It is remembering it. Listen closely to a newborn's cry, and you may be hearing something more than distress. Researchers who recorded the cries of newborns from different countries found a quiet pattern hidden inside them. Babies born to French-speaking mothers tended to cry with a rising melody, their pitch climbing toward the end. Babies born to German-speaking mothers tended to cry the other way, their pitch falling as the cry went on. Each group, only days old, was crying in the shape of the language it had been steeped in before birth. This means the melody of a mother tongue reaches a baby long before any words do. In the final weeks in the womb, a baby absorbs not the meaning of speech, but its music, its rhythm, its rise and fall, the particular shape of the sounds around it. And when the baby is finally born and lets out its first cries, that borrowed music comes with it, woven into the only voice it has. There is a gentle wonder in this for you to hold. Before a baby can say a single word, it is already in its own small way speaking the language of home. It has been listening so carefully for so long that even its cries carry the accent of the people waiting to love it. So the next time you hear a newborn cry, you might imagine that you are not only hearing hunger or tiredness, You are hearing the first faint echo of a language being passed quietly and completely from one generation into the next. Here is something surprising about a newborn's world of taste. It does not begin at birth. Long before a baby ever nurses, it has already been sampling flavors carried to it through the fluid that surrounds it in the womb. What a mother eats can subtly flavor that fluid, and the baby swallowing small amounts as it grows tastes faint traces of her meals: garlic, vanilla, carrot. And these studies have found that the tastes of a mother's diet drift through to her unborn child, shaping a first quiet familiarity with flavor. This means a newborn is not a blank slate at the table of the senses. It arrives already leaning gently toward the flavors of the food its family eats. Babies whose mothers drank a certain juice while pregnant later showed a fondness for that same taste, choosing it over one they had never met. The womb, it seems, is a kind of first kitchen, offering previews of the meals to come. There is a soft continuity in this that you can feel. A baby is being welcomed into a particular life, a particular culture, a particular table before it has even been born. Its early tastes tuned to the flavors it will one day share with the people around it. So the foods that will fill its childhood are in a faint way already known to it. The newborn, who seems so new to everything, has, in truth, been quietly preparing to belong, learning one swallow at a time, the taste of the life that is waiting to hold it. Try for a moment to breathe in and swallow at exactly the same time. You will find you cannot. In an adult, the passages for air and food share a crossroads at the throat, and we must take turns pausing our breath to swallow so that nothing goes the wrong way. A newborn does not have to make that trade. For its first months, a baby can breathe and swallow almost simultaneously. And this is no small gift. It is what allows a newborn to nurse steadily gulp after gulp, without having to stop and gasp for air between swallows. The reason lies in the shape of a newborn's throat. The voice box sits higher in a baby than it will later in life, positioned in such a way that the airway and the path of the milk can work at nearly the same time. It is a temporary arrangement, built for one urgent, early task: feeding, without interruption, drinking deeply and safely in a body that has only just learned to breathe at all. As the baby grows, the throat gradually reshapes, the voice box drifts lower, and this early ability quietly fades, traded in time for the sounds and speech that a lower voice box makes possible. But in the beginning, when nothing matters more than getting nourished, the newborn's body is arranged perfectly for it. What can look like fragile helplessness is once again a design tuned with care, a small body built from its very throat to do the one thing it most needs to do. From the very first days, a newborn already has opinions about taste, and they lean in one clear direction. Offer something sweet, and a baby's face softens, its sucking grows calm and content. Offer something bitter or sharply sour, and the face draws tight, the mouth pulls back, the whole small body seems to recoil. This preference is present at birth, unlearned and immediate, written into a newborn long before it could ever be taught. There is a quiet logic behind it. In nature, sweetness tends to signal energy and safety. The taste of mother's milk itself is gently sweet, while bitterness often warns of something that might be harmful. A newborn, unable to protect itself in any other way, arrives with its tastes already sorted toward what nourishes and away from what might harm. It is a kind of built-in caution, an ancient wisdom carried in the tongue. You can see this in how effectively a drop of something sweet can soothe a newborn during a brief, uncomfortable moment. The sweetness does more than please. It genuinely calms, easing a baby through a small distress. So this early love of sweetness is not simple indulgence. It is protection, and it is comfort, folded together into one of the first preferences a human being ever holds. Before it can choose almost anything else, a newborn is already choosing what feels safe. And at the very center of that safe, sweet world sits the taste it will come to know best of all, the warm, familiar sweetness of being fed. Of all the things a newborn could look at, one shape draws its gaze above the rest. From the earliest hours of life, babies show a clear preference for faces, for the pattern of two eyes, a nose and a mouth, over any other arrangement of shapes placed before them. Show a newborn a simple face-like pattern beside a jumbled one holding the very same parts, and the baby will look longer at the one that resembles a face. This pull toward faces is present so early and so reliably that many believe a newborn arrives already prepared to find them. In a world that is otherwise mostly blur, a face is the shape a baby is most ready to notice, most drawn to hold in its wavering gaze. And it makes a kind of quiet sense. A newborn cannot feed itself, warm itself, or move itself to safety. Everything it needs will come through the care of another person, and that person arrives always wearing a face. To be drawn to faces is to be drawn to the very source of survival. When you lean over a newborn and it fixes its unsteady eyes on you, studying your features with a solemn kind of attention, you are watching one of the oldest instincts a person has come into the world already carrying. It is not looking at just anything. It is searching from its first waking hours for the faces that will care for it, turning again and again toward the promise that someone is there. Look into a newborn's eyes, and the color you see may not be the color that stays. Many babies are born with eyes that appear a soft gray or misty blue, only for that shade to slowly deepen and change over the months that follow. The eyes you meet on the first day are quite often still on their way to becoming what they will be. The reason lies in a pigment called melanin, the same substance that colors skin and hair. At birth, the colored ring of the eye may carry very little of it, and less pigment tends to look blue or gray in the light. As the baby grows and its eyes are gently touched by light, more pigment can gather, and the color may shift, settling sometimes over half a year or more into brown, hazel, green, or a lasting blue. There is a quiet patience in this small fact. A newborn arrives unfinished in so many gentle ways, and even something as seemingly fixed as eye color is still being written in those first months. Nothing is being rushed. The body simply takes its time, adjusting slowly to a world newly full of light. If you have watched a baby's eyes and wondered what color they would keep, you have taken part in one of the softest kinds of waiting there is. The eyes looking up at you today may hold a different shade by the time that baby learns to say your name. A slow, ordinary transformation, unfolding quietly in no hurry at all. A newborn cries, often sometimes for long stretches, and yet, in those first weeks, something is quietly missing from that crying. There are no tears. A baby can wail with its whole body, face crumpling, breath heaving, and still its cheeks stay dry. The tears we so strongly associate with crying simply have not arrived yet. The reason is gently mechanical. The glands that make tears are present at birth, but in the early weeks they produce only enough moisture to keep the eyes healthy, not enough to spill over into visible weeping. It usually takes several weeks, sometimes a couple of months, before those glands mature enough for real tears to fall during a cry. Until then, the sound of distress comes without its usual watery companion. There is something worth sitting with here, especially for anyone who has comforted a crying newborn. That early cry, tearless as it is not a lesser kind of need. It is a baby using the only tool it has, its voice, to call for help long before its body has learned to weep. The tears will come later in their own time. For now, the cry alone carries the whole message. And when those first true tears finally do appear glistening on a small face, they mark a quiet passage, a body growing into the fuller shape of feeling. But in the beginning, a newborn asks for closeness, with a dry-eyed cry that is no less honest and no less deserving of the arms that answer it. Brush a gentle finger against a newborn's cheek near the corner of its mouth, and something quietly remarkable happens. The baby turns its head toward the touch, mouth opening, tongue searching as if certain that food must be near. This is called the rooting reflex, and it is present from birth working without any thought or learning at all. The purpose is beautifully simple. A newborn cannot yet find the breast on its own by looking. Its vision is too soft, its head too heavy to steer with ease. So the body offers a shortcut. Whatever grazes the cheek, the baby turns toward, tracing the touch back to its source, opening its mouth to feed. When a baby brushes against its mother's skin, that same instinct guides it again and again toward nourishment. It is one of a handful of reflexes a newborn is born already, knowing an unlearned answer to one of life's most urgent early questions: how to eat when you understand nothing yet about the world. You can think of it as a kind of built-in wisdom tucked into the body before experience has had any chance to teach. The baby does not know what milk is, or where it comes from, or why it hungers. It only knows to turn toward the touch, and in that small automatic turning lies one of the first ways a helpless newborn quietly takes care of itself. Reaching without knowing, it is reaching toward the very thing that will keep it alive. There is a small hidden fact about how a newborn breathes that most of us never think to notice. For its first months of life, a baby breathes almost entirely through its nose. Breathing through the mouth, so natural to us later, does not yet come easily to a newborn, and so the nose carries nearly all the work of every breath. This turns out to be another quiet piece of design. Because a newborn spends so much of its time feeding a body built to breathe through the nose, can nurse and breathe at the same moment without having to choose between air and milk. The mouth stays busy with drinking. The nose keeps the breath flowing steadily alongside. Two urgent needs are met at once smoothly by the simple arrangement of the newborn's body. It also means that a stuffy nose can trouble a newborn more than we might expect, since it cannot easily switch to breathing through its mouth to make up the difference. What comes so automatically to an older child is in the beginning not yet available. There is something tender in noticing this. So much of what a newborn does, it does without ever learning breathing through the nose. Turning to root, gripping a finger, the body arrives already knowing its earliest tasks, quietly handling them while the mind is still soft and new. And in the steady rise and fall of a sleeping newborn's breath drawn gently through that small nose, you are watching one more thing a baby was simply born already knowing how to do. Place a finger into the palm of a newborn, and the tiny hand closes around it at once, curling tight with a surprising, insistent strength. This is the grasp reflex, and it is far more powerful than a body so small might suggest. In fact, a newborn's grip can be strong enough that if it took hold of a bar with both hands, it could nearly support its own hanging weight for a moment. Why should such a small, helpless creature come equipped with a grip like that? The answer reaches back a very long way. Our distant ancestors carried their young against their bodies, and an infant who could cling to fur holding fast to a moving parent was an infant more likely to stay safe. That ancient need has faded, but the reflex remains, tucked into every newborn's hands as a kind of inheritance. The grip no longer clings to fur. It clings now to fingers. There is something quietly moving in that automatic clasp when you feel it for the first time. A newborn cannot choose to hold your hand, cannot decide to reach for you on purpose yet. And still, when you offer a finger, the small fingers close, gripping with all the strength that ancient body could muster. It is not affection, not yet. It is older than affection, a reflex handed down across countless generations, quietly insisting on the same thing it always has. Stay close. Hold on. Do not let the one who carries you slip away. Support a newborn under its arms so that its feet just brush a flat surface and something unexpected unfolds. The baby begins to move its legs one and then the other in slow, deliberate motions that look remarkably like walking. This is the stepping reflex, and it appears in the earliest days of life, long before a baby could ever truly stand or walk on its own. It can seem almost startling to watch this tiny figure who cannot yet hold up its own head patiently taking phantom steps across the air. The movements are real and coordinated, each leg lifting and placing in turn a walking pattern already sketched into a body that will not actually walk for the better part of a year. Then, within a couple of months, the reflex quietly fades and the stepping stops. For a while it was thought this reflex simply vanished, its purpose unknown. But many now believe it never truly disappears at all, that it goes quiet waiting and returns transformed when the baby is finally ready to stand and take its first real steps. The pattern was there from the start. The strength and balance simply had to catch up. There is a gentle reassurance in that thought for you to hold. Even the walking that lies so far in a newborn's future is in some faint way already present on the very first day, rehearsed in miniature, tucked away, patiently waiting for the body around it to grow into the promise those small, stepping feet were quietly making all along. In one gentle study, expectant mothers were asked to read the same passage aloud over and over during the final weeks of pregnancy. The same words, the same rhythm, the same rise and fall repeated day after day. After the babies were born, researchers played them that familiar passage alongside one they had never encountered, and the newborns responded differently to the one they had heard within the womb. They preferred it. Only days old, they showed by their sucking that they recognized the particular music of those repeated words. They had been listening all along, learning a rhythm before they could ever understand a single meaning. What they remembered was not the story itself, of course. A newborn knows nothing of plot or word. What it held onto was the pattern, the cadence, the beat, the shape of a passage heard so many times that it became familiar, a small piece of the known carried across the threshold of birth. There is something tender here that you can feel. It means the voices reading, singing, and speaking near a growing baby are not lost to the noise. They are gathering quietly into the first faint memories a person ever forms. When someone reads aloud to a belly night after night, they are not only passing the time, they are leaving something behind for the baby to find later, a familiar rhythm waiting on the other side of birth, a small proof that this new and startling world already holds something it somehow wordlessly knows. Watch a sleeping newborn closely, and you may catch a small fleeting smile drift across its face. It is a lovely thing to see and easy to read as happiness or contentment. But those very first smiles in the earliest days are something quieter than that. They are reflexes, spontaneous movements of the face not yet aimed at anyone not yet born of feeling. These early smiles tend to appear during sleep or in drowsy drifting moments, flickering up from within rather than in response to a face or a voice. The baby is not smiling at you yet, however much it may look that way. It is simply making the shape of a smile, the way it makes so many movements in these first weeks, its body practicing expressions long before they carry meaning. And then, somewhere around 6 weeks of age, everything changes. A newborn produces its first true social smile, a smile given in answer to a face offered on purpose, meant for the person leaning near. That is a different smile entirely, and often an unforgettable one for those who receive it. There is no need to feel that the early reflex smiles are somehow less precious. They are the rehearsal for the real thing, a face quietly learning a shape it will soon fill with genuine warmth. And when that first knowing smile finally arrives given straight to you, you are witnessing a small threshold being crossed, the moment a baby stops merely making the shape of connection and begins at last to truly reach for it. A newborn cannot understand a single word, and yet remarkably, it can already tell one language apart from another. Placed between the rhythms of its own native tongue and those of an unfamiliar one, a baby only days old responds differently to each, recognizing in some wordless way the language that surrounded it before birth. This does not mean the baby knows any meaning. What it knows is music. Every language carries its own signature of rhythm and melody. its own particular pattern of stress and pause, and a baby steeped in one of them for months arrives already tuned to that pattern. The foreign tongue with its different beat registers as something other, something new. Studies have shown newborns will suck differently to hear their familiar language working, in their small way to bring the known sound back. Consider what this means about those final months in the womb. A baby was not simply floating in silence, waiting to be born into language. It was listening and learning, absorbing the deep rhythm of the words its family speaks, so that its own mother tongue would already feel like home on the very first day. When you speak to a newborn in the language it has been hearing all along, some part of it recognizes the shape of those sounds. Before it can say a word, before it can grasp a single meaning, a baby already carries the melody of home inside it, a familiar rhythm it will spend the coming years slowly filling with words of its own. Of all the sounds a newborn has ever heard, one came before every other. Long before a voice or a lullaby, before any word reached it, there was a heartbeat, steady, close and constant, the private rhythm of the body that held it. For all those months in the womb, that heartbeat was the ceaseless background of a baby's entire existence, the one sound that never stopped. So it is no wonder that a newborn calms when it hears a heartbeat again. Held against a chest near the same steady pulse it knew for so long, a baby often settles its own breathing, easing its small body, loosening into quiet. The sound that filled every moment before birth becomes after birth one of the surest ways to soothe. This is part of why holding a newborn close chest to chest works such gentle magic. You are not only offering warmth and the comfort of your arms, you are returning to the baby, the oldest and most familiar sound in its short life, the rhythm that meant for as long as it can be said to have known anything, that all was well. There is something deeply reassuring in this, for you to hold on to. In a world that must feel overwhelming and new, a newborn does not have to be taught what safety sounds like. It already knows. And when you draw a baby near enough to hear your heart, you are speaking to it in the very first language it ever learned, a slow, steady beat that has always meant it is not alone. Consider the number a newborn is born already carrying inside its head. Tucked within that small skull are close to 100 billion neurons, the tiny cells that will one day carry every thought, every memory, every word and feeling a person ever holds. It is very nearly the same number an adult brain contains. Let that scale settle for a moment. If you tried to count those neurons one per second without ever stopping to sleep or rest, it would take you more than 3,000 years to reach the end. And all of them are present in some form in a being so new it cannot yet lift its own head. The vast machinery of a human mind arrives in its raw count almost complete from the very first day. What a newborn does not yet have is the wiring between them. Those billions of neurons begin life mostly unconnected, like a vast city of houses, with few roads laid between them. The astonishing work of the years ahead is not to grow many more neurons, but to link the ones already there, to build connection by connection, the intricate network that will become a whole person. It can shift how you see a newborn holding this in mind. Behind that unfocused gaze sits nearly the full complement of a human brain waiting. The helplessness on the surface hides an almost unimaginable richness. Underneath 100 billion small beginnings, already gathered, already present, quietly waiting for a life to connect them into a mind. Here is something that runs against what we might expect. We tend to imagine a body growing by adding parts as it gets bigger. Yet a newborn is born with around 300 bones, while a fully grown adult has only 206. The baby, so much smaller, begins life with nearly 100 more bones than the person it will become. How can a body end up with fewer bones than it started with? The answer is that many of a newborn's bones are not yet single solid pieces. They arrive in parts, separate sections, sometimes joined by soft cartilage that will slowly grow together over the years of childhood. As the baby matures, these pieces fuse several small bones, merging into one larger one. until the higher count of infancy settles into the familiar adult number. This is not a loss, it is a joining. Those extra separate pieces make a newborn's body more flexible and easier to shape, which matters greatly during birth and through the rapid growth of early life. A skeleton built in movable parts can bend and adjust in ways a fully fused one cannot. There is a quiet wonder in carrying this thought. The very bones of a newborn are still unfinished, still in pieces, still slowly assembling themselves into the frame that will one day stand and walk and run. What looks like a complete little body is underneath a work in progress, 100 small pieces patiently drawing together into the single steady structure of a person. If a newborn arrives with nearly all its neurons but few links between them, then the great labor of early life is the building of those links. And it happens at a pace almost beyond imagining. In the busiest early stretch, a baby's brain can form up to 1 million new connections every single second. Sit with that for just a moment. In the time it takes to draw one slow breath, hundreds of thousands, even millions, of tiny bridges are being laid between brain cells, wiring together the beginnings of a mind. Every sound the baby hears, every face it studies, every touch and taste and moment of comfort helps decide which of those connections form and hold. The brain is not waiting to grow up. It is being built right now out of the ordinary experiences of an ordinary day. This is why the quiet things matter so much, the talking, the holding, the gentle rhythms of care. They are not merely kind. They are quite literally shaping the architecture of a person, one connection at a time, faster than any thought could follow. There is something humbling in this for you to carry. When you speak softly to a newborn or rock it, or simply let it rest against you, you are taking part in construction work of staggering speed and delicacy. The small being in your arms is assembling itself from the world you offer it. And in the hush of an evening like this one, even the calm and the safety a baby feels are being woven silently into the growing shape of who it will become. The extra bones a newborn carries do not vanish, they join. Over the long, unhurried years of childhood, many of a baby's separate bones grow toward one another and fuse several small pieces, merging into a single larger one, until the roughly 300 of infancy become the 206 of an adult. Take the skull as one gentle example. A newborn's head is not one smooth dome of bone, but several plates held apart by soft gaps. Those plates let the head flex during birth and give the brain room to swell in the growing months that follow. Only later do they knit together into the solid single skull an adult carries. The spine tells a similar story, and so does the base of the pelvis, each built first in movable parts, each slowly settling into one. This joining takes years, not weeks. Some bones do not finish fusing until a person is well into their 20s, long after childhood has passed. The body is in no hurry. It lays down its structure piece by piece, letting each part harden and join only when the time is right. There is a quiet patience in this worth resting on tonight. A newborn skeleton is not a smaller copy of an adult's waiting merely to expand. It is something still being assembled, still choosing where to join and where to hold apart, quietly building the frame that will carry a whole life. What begins as many gentle pieces becomes in its own slow time one steady structure, unrushed, unforced, arriving exactly when it is ready. Rest a hand lightly on a sleeping newborn, and you may feel it a heartbeat far quicker than your own. Where a calm adult heart might beat around 60 to 80 times a minute, a newborn's races along at roughly 120 to 160, nearly twice as fast. Its small heart is working hard all the time, even in the deepest sleep. Why should such a tiny body need such a rapid pulse? The answer lies in its very smallness. A newborn's heart is only about the size of a walnut, and each beat pushes just a little blood on its way. To keep a fast-growing body supplied with everything it needs, that small heart simply must beat more often, making up in speed what it cannot yet manage in size. Quickness is how it keeps pace with the enormous work of growing. As the baby grows and its heart grows with it, each beat will move more blood, and the pace will gradually slow, easing down over the years toward the steadier rhythm of an adult. The racing heart of a newborn is a passing thing matched exactly to the size it is now. There is something tender in feeling that quick, insistent pulse beneath your hand. It is the sound of a body giving everything it has to the work of being new, a small heart beating fast and faithfully hour after hour, keeping a whole fragile life in motion while the rest of the body slowly catches up to it. For all the billions of neurons packed inside it, a newborn's brain is still remarkably small. At birth, it measures only about a quarter of the size it will eventually reach in adulthood. The full count of cells may nearly be there, but the brain that holds them is a fraction of what it will become. This is one of the quiet trade-offs written into how humans are born. A baby's head is already large compared to the rest of it, and it must pass through the narrow path of birth. A brain grown any bigger beforehand simply could not make that journey safely. So a human arrives, with its brain still small and unfinished, carrying most of its growing into the world outside, where there is finally room to expand. It is a kind of bargain struck with our own biology. Other creatures are born far more complete, ready to stand or run within hours. A human trades that early readiness for something else, a brain that does most of its building after birth, shaped by the world it actually meets, rather than the dark quiet of the womb. Helplessness, in this light, is the price of a mind made to be molded by life itself. There is a gentle meaning to hold in that thought. A newborn is not behind, not lacking. It is simply built to grow out here, among voices and faces and warmth, where its small brain can drink in the world and become slowly the vast and particular mind of a person, shaped from the very start by everything it is given. Watch the chest of a sleeping newborn rise and fall, and you may notice how quickly it moves. A baby breathes far faster than we do, around 40 times a minute, sometimes more, where a calm adult breathes closer to 12 or 16. That small chest is fluttering along at a pace that would leave a grown person feeling breathless. As with its racing heart, the reason lies in a newborn's smallness and its speed of growth. Its lungs are tiny, each breath drawing in only a little air, and its fast-growing body has a great and constant hunger for oxygen. To meet that need, a newborn simply breathes more often. Quick, shallow breaths, gathering together the air a body this busy requires. A newborn's breathing can also be uneven in these early weeks, speeding up, slowing down, even pausing briefly before settling again into its rhythm. To a watchful eye, this can seem worrying, yet much of it is simply the ordinary way a very new body learns the steady work of breathing. In time, the rhythm smooths, and the pace gradually slows toward the calm, even breath of an older child. There is a soft intimacy in noticing this rapid little breath, especially in the quiet of a night like this. It is the sound of a body wholly given over to living, pulling in the world breath after quick breath, doing without any effort or thought the one thing that must never stop. And as you listen, you might let your own breathing slow, a gentle counterpoint to that small, fluttering pace. Here is a small hidden fact tucked into a newborn's legs. If you could look inside a baby's knee, you would not find the hard round kneecap you might expect. In its place sits soft cartilage, a flexible rubbery form of the same tissue that shapes the tip of your nose, quietly holding the space where a true bone will one day grow. A newborn's kneecaps have not yet turned to bone at all. This is part of a larger pattern in how a baby's body is built. Much of a newborn's skeleton begins as cartilage, soft and pliable, and only slowly hardens into bone through a gradual process that unfolds across childhood. The kneecaps are simply among the pieces that take their time. It can be years before they finish becoming the solid bone an adult knows. There is good sense in this softness. Cartilage bends where bone would break, and a body built partly from it can absorb the countless small bumps and tumbles of early life more gently than a fully hardened frame could. A baby who is forever falling as it learns to move is well served by knees that give a little. So the softness is not fragility, but a kind of protection, a body wise enough to stay pliable while it is still learning how to hold itself up. It is one more reminder that a newborn is unfinished in the most purposeful of ways, its very bones waiting soft and patient to harden only once the falling years are safely past. If a newborn's brain begins at only a quarter of its adult size, then the growing it has ahead is extraordinary, and much of it comes astonishingly soon. In just the first year of life, a baby's brain nearly doubles in size. It is one of the fastest stretches of growth a human brain will ever undergo, packed into those earliest tender months. Think of what fuels that swelling. It is not the arrival of many new cells, for most of those were present from the start. It is the growing of connections between them, the thickening of links, the slow wrapping of nerve fibers in a coating that helps signals travel faster and cleaner. The brain is not just getting bigger, it is getting woven, growing dense with the wiring of experience, expanding to hold everything the baby is learning about its brand new world. This is why the first year asks so much of a baby and gives so much in return. Every feeding, every gaze, every soothing word and safe night of sleep is feeding a brain in the most explosive growth of its life. The quiet care of these months is quietly monumental. There is something moving in knowing this as you sit in the calm of an evening. The small head resting somewhere nearby or simply held in your thoughts is home to a growth so swift it will nearly double before a single birthday arrives. And all of it is being built from ordinary tenderness, the holding, the warmth, the steady presence that tells a growing brain again and again that it is safe enough to grow. On the very first day of life, a newborn's stomach is astonishingly small, able to hold only about a single teaspoon at a time. It is roughly the size of a small marble, no bigger, and it fills and empties with only the tiniest amount of milk. This is not a flaw or a shortage. It is a perfect match. In those first days, a mother's body does not yet make large volumes of milk. Instead, it offers small amounts of a thick, rich first milk, and a stomach the size of a marble is exactly suited to receive it. The tiny stomach and the small early supply are made for each other, two halves of one gentle arrangement. It also explains why a newborn feeds so, very often waking again and again through the day and night to nurse. A stomach that holds only a teaspoon cannot store much, and so it empties quickly and asks again soon. Those frequent feedings are not the baby being difficult. They are simply the natural rhythm of such a small vessel, filling and emptying over and over around the clock. There is a quiet reassurance to hold in this, especially for anyone worn thin by a newborn's endless hunger. That constant feeding is not a sign that anything is wrong. It is the design working exactly as it should. A marble-sized stomach and a mother's early milk meeting each other perfectly, so that a body still measured in teaspoons can be filled gently and often with precisely as much as it can hold. Rest a gentle hand on the top of a newborn's head, and you may find a soft spot there, a place where the skull yields slightly beneath your fingers. These soft spots are gaps between the separate plates of bone that form a baby's skull, and they are one of the wisest features of how a human is born. There are usually several of these gaps, the largest resting near the top of the head. They exist because a newborn's skull is not yet a single fused dome, but a set of plates held apart on purpose, able to shift and even overlap slightly during the tight passage of birth. Without that give, a baby's head could not safely make its way into the world. But their work does not end at birth. These gaps also leave room for the brain to grow, and grow it does, nearly doubling within the first year. A rigid, sealed skull would have no space to allow such swelling. The soft gaps let the head expand outward, as the mind fills in, keeping pace with one of the fastest growth spurts a human ever knows. Only slowly over the first couple of years do the gaps close and the plates knit into solid bone. There is something quietly protective in this design worth resting on tonight. A newborn's head is soft precisely because it must be soft enough to be born, soft enough to grow. What can feel so fragile beneath a careful hand is really the body's gentle wisdom, leaving room quite literally for a whole mind to unfold. A newborn's stomach does not stay the size of a marble for long. Within just the first week of life, it stretches and grows, coming to hold far more than the single teaspoon it began with, expanding in only days to a capacity many times its first. This growth keeps perfect time with another change. As the days pass, a mother's body shifts from making small amounts of thick first milk to producing larger volumes of thinner, fuller milk. Just as the supply increases, the baby's stomach grows ready to receive it. The two changes move together, matched step for step, so that the newborn is always able to take in about as much as is being offered. It is a quiet piece of choreography. This pairing of a growing stomach with a growing supply. Neither races ahead of the other. The body seems to know that a stomach stretched too fast, or a flood of milk arriving too soon, would serve no one, and so it lets both unfold in gentle time. There is a deep reassurance to hold in this. So much about a newborn's early feeding can feel uncertain to those caring for it, full of worry about whether there is enough. Yet beneath the worry runs this steady design, adjusting quietly on its own, the small stomach widening just as the milk grows fuller, need and nourishment rising together. A body still measured in its first days is already keeping careful pace with itself, making sure that as its hunger grows, exactly enough grows to meet it. A newborn spends a great deal of its early life asleep. It is not unusual for a baby to sleep as much as 16 or 17 hours out of every 24, drifting off and waking again in short stretches, scattered across both day and night. For a newborn, sleep is nearly the whole shape of existence. This is not laziness or mere fragility. It is some of the most important work a baby ever does. During sleep, a newborn's body grows, its systems settle, and its swiftly building brain does much of its quiet labor, sorting, strengthening, and weaving together everything the small being is beginning to take in. So much of becoming a person happens while a baby's eyes are closed. The sleep comes in short pieces rather than one long night, because a newborn must wake often to feed that tiny, quickly emptying stomach. It has no sense yet of day or night, no long unbroken darkness to sink into. Instead, it floats between sleeping and waking around the clock, gathering its rest in fragments, following hunger rather than the sun. There is a soft kinship to feel in this here in the quiet of your own evening. The deep, frequent sleep of a newborn is a reminder of how essential rest truly is. Not time lost, but time in which a whole person is being knit together. As you let this night grow calm around you, you are doing in your own way a version of that same ancient work, letting sleep gather you up and quietly restore what the day has spent. When an adult grows cold, the body shivers, its muscles trembling quickly to generate heat. A newborn cannot do this. In its earliest days, a baby does not shiver at all, and so it must keep warm by another means, entirely one it is born already carrying. That means is a special kind of fat, known as brown fat, tucked in small stores around a newborn's neck, back, and shoulders. Unlike ordinary fat, which mostly stores energy, brown fat can burn itself to make heat, directly warming the baby from within, like a set of tiny internal furnaces. When a newborn grows cold, this fat quietly kindles, releasing warmth without a single shiver. It is a remarkable provision laid down before birth for exactly this purpose. A newborn cannot pull on a blanket, cannot move to a warmer spot, cannot even tremble to warm itself. It arrives instead with its heating already built in a store of special fat, waiting to guard it against the sudden chill of a world so much colder than the womb. There is a tender thoughtfulness in this to sit with. Everything about keeping a newborn warm is on its side, mostly out of its hands, and so its body comes prepared, carrying its own gentle warmth into a cold new world. When you wrap a baby snugly or hold it close against you, you are helping that quiet inner fire, adding your warmth to the small one it was already born, knowing how to make. Watch a sleeping newborn closely, and you will see it is rarely perfectly still. Its eyes flicker beneath closed lids, its face twitches through small expressions, its fingers stir. The baby has slipped into an active kind of sleep, and in a newborn this restless, vivid sleep makes up nearly half of all the hours it spends asleep. In an adult, this dreaming sleep fills only about a fifth of the night, but a newborn spends far more of its rest in this active state, its brain humming with quiet activity, even as its body lies down. Something important is happening in those flickering hours. Many believe this active sleep is deeply tied to the building of the brain, its intense inner motion helping to lay down and strengthen the countless new connections a newborn is forming so quickly. If so, then a baby's sleep is not merely rest but construction, the mind hard at work behind closed eyes. It may be that a newborn spends so much of its sleep in this active state precisely because its brain has so very much to build. There is a gentle wonder in imagining this in the hush of a night like now. The small being who seems to do so little while awake may be doing some of its greatest work while asleep. Its restless dreaming sleep, a workshop where a whole mind is quietly taking shape. And perhaps there is comfort in it for you too, the reminder that even in stillness, even in sleep, something essential is always being gently built. Look at a newborn laid out in your arms, and you may notice how large its head seems compared with the rest of it. This is no illusion. A newborn's head makes up about a quarter of its entire body length, a proportion that would look startling on a grown person, but is perfectly ordinary on a baby. That large head follows directly from the large brain within it. A human is born with its brain already sizable relative to its body, because so much of who we are depends on that brain, and so the head must be big enough to house it. The rest of the body, by comparison, still has a great deal of growing to do and will slowly catch up over the years of childhood until the head becomes a far smaller fraction of the whole. This is part of why a newborn's head needs such careful support in the early weeks. It is heavy, relatively speaking, and the neck is not yet strong enough to hold it steady, so a gentle hand must cradle it whenever the baby is lifted or held. The proportions that make a newborn look the way it does also shape how it must be carried. There is a certain tenderness in this to hold on to. That large, wobbling head is a sign of the mind. It protects a body arranged from the very start around the importance of the brain it carries. And every time a careful hand rises to cradle it, that small gesture honors without a word the precious weight of everything that head contains. A newborn's sense of smell is one of its sharpest senses, keener in these early days than it may ever be again. While its eyes are still soft and its movements clumsy, a baby's nose is already working with remarkable skill, gathering the world through scent long before the other senses catch up. This early keenness has a clear and gentle purpose. A newborn uses smell to find its way to nourishment and closeness, turning toward the particular scent of its mother, drawn to the smell of her skin and her milk, following that invisible thread when its eyes cannot yet guide it. In a body not ready to see the world clearly, smell steps forward and leads. Studies suggest a newborn can distinguish its own mother's scent from a stranger's within the first days of life, and will settle more easily in the presence of that familiar smell. It is one of the earliest ways a baby tells the known from the unknown, sorting its brand new world into what is safe and near and what is not. There is something quietly moving in this to carry with you. Before a newborn can recognize a face, it can recognize a scent, and it uses that ancient sense to reach toward the people who will love it. The smell of a caregiver becomes one of a baby's first anchors, a comfort it can find even in the dark. And so, in ways it will never remember, a newborn comes to know home first, not by sight or sound, but by the simple, faithful truth of how it smells. Of all a newborn's senses, sight is the least ready at birth. A baby's vision reaches clearly only a few inches before the world begins to soften and blur the far distances, dissolving into a wash of light and vague shape. Where an adult can see sharply across a whole room, a newborn's clear world is only as wide as the space right in front of its face. This might sound like a great disadvantage, and yet there is a quiet purpose folded into it. The one distance a newborn sees best happens to be exactly the space between its own eyes and the face of whoever holds it close. The blur beyond is not empty carelessness. It is a way of clearing everything else away, leaving only the nearest, most important thing in focus. A world that would otherwise overwhelm is gently narrowed down to what a baby can manage. Consider how much a newborn is meeting all at once. New light, new space, new faces, an entire world where before there was warm darkness. Sight that reached everywhere at once might be far too much. Instead, the far world stays soft, and the near world, the world of the caregiver's face, comes clear. There is a tenderness in this to hold on to tonight. A newborn does not need to see the whole vast room in order to feel safe within it. It needs only to see the face leaning near, and that face it can see. Everything beyond can wait, blurred and patient, until the small eyes are ready in their own time to take in the rest of the world. In a newborn's soft and blurry world, not everything is equally hard to see. A baby's early vision responds most strongly to high contrast, to bold edges where light meets dark, to sharp boundaries of black against white. Gentle pastels and subtle shades may barely register, but a stark line between dark and pale can catch and hold a newborn's gaze. This is why very young babies are so drawn to simple patterns of black and white, and why the boundary of a hairline against a forehead, or the dark of an eye against the pale of a face, is exactly the kind of thing a newborn's vision is built to notice. The world of soft color will come later. For now, the baby sees best where contrast is boldest. And here, once again, a design reveals itself. A human face is full of just such high contrast edges. The darkness of the eyes, the line of the brows, the shape of the mouth against the skin. The very features a newborn most needs to find are made of exactly the kind of contrast its eyes are most ready to see. Its vision is quietly tuned from the start toward faces. There is a gentle logic worth resting on here. A newborn cannot yet take in the full richness of the visual world, and it does not need to. It needs to find the face that will care for it, and its early love of bold contrast leads it straight there toward the eyes, looking back the strongest, clearest shape in its whole soft world. Something quietly remarkable happens when a newborn is laid bare against a parent's bare chest. Its heartbeat steadies, its breathing settles into a calmer rhythm, its body temperature holds more evenly. All at once, several of a baby's most vital systems grow more stable simply from the closeness of skin against skin. This is not a small or vague effect. Placed skin to skin, a newborn tends to cry less, sleep more deeply, and keep warm more easily than it would apart. The parent's body seems to act as a kind of gentle regulator, helping the baby's own rhythms find their footing. Warming it when it cools, calming it when it startles, steadying what is still so new and unsteady. Two bodies held close, quietly, working as one. You may find it moving to know how deep this connection runs. A newborn is not yet able to manage all of these systems well on its own. Its grip on its own warmth, its own calm, its own steady breath is still loose and uncertain. And so closeness does some of that work for it, your nearness, lending the baby a stability its own body cannot yet fully hold. There is a profound reassurance in this, both for the baby and for anyone who has ever held one close and felt it settle. That simple act of drawing a newborn near skin against skin is doing far more than comforting it. It is helping to keep it well. In the oldest way, there is closeness, is care, a body soothed, steadied, and kept safe by nothing more than the warmth of being held. A newborn's very first stool is unlike any that will come after. It is dark, almost black, thick and sticky as tar, and most curiously of all, it was formed before the baby ever swallowed a single drop of milk. It is the residue of life before birth passed in the first day or two of life outside. This first stool is made of everything a baby gathered while still in the womb, the cells, fluids and traces it swallowed during those months within. It collected quietly in the intestines throughout the pregnancy, waiting, and only after birth does the newborn's body finally release it, clearing the way for the ordinary digestion of milk to begin. Its strange, dark form is simply the sign of a system starting up for the very first time. There is something quietly fitting in this small passage. A newborn's digestive tract has never truly worked until now. It has been assembled and readied, but never used. This first dark stool is the very first thing that system ever does, the opening act of a body learning from scratch how to take in the world and make use of it. You might think of it as a kind of threshold, humble as it is. With that first passage, a newborn crosses from a body that was fed entirely from within to a body that must now feed on its own milk going in, and life beginning to be built from it. It is one more of the countless quiet beginnings that fill a newborn's first days. A small, unglamorous sign that a whole new way of living has just begun. When a newborn is upset, many voices might try to soothe it, yet one voice tends to reach it faster than any other. It is the voice a baby heard most often before birth, the familiar sound carried to it through all those months in the womb. That known voice can calm a crying newborn more quickly than a stranger's ever could. You may have seen this without quite naming it, the way a fretful baby stills at the sound of a particular person speaking, turning toward it, its cries easing almost mid-breath. The baby is not understanding the words. It is recognizing the voice itself, the specific music of someone it has been listening to since before it was born. And that recognition brings a comfort that unfamiliar voices cannot match. There is a deep tenderness in this for you to hold. It means the hours a person spends talking near a growing baby long before birth are quietly building something lasting, a familiarity that will become one of the newborn's surest comforts once it arrives. The voice becomes a refuge, a known thing in a world of new ones. And so when you speak softly to a distressed newborn and feel it begin to settle, you are witnessing that bond at work. Your voice, familiar and near, is doing what few things can, reaching through the confusion of a brand new world to say in a language older than words that someone known is here. In a life where almost everything is strange, a familiar voice becomes one of the first safe places a baby ever finds. Many babies arrive wearing something we rarely stop to wonder at: a soft, white, waxy coating spread across their skin. It can look almost like a thin layer of cream gathered in the creases and folds, and it served a quiet and important purpose long before the baby was born. This coating formed in the womb, where a baby spends months surrounded entirely by fluid, without protection. Skin left soaking in liquid for so long would grow soft and damaged. The waxy layer acted as a barrier, sealing and guarding the delicate new skin, keeping it smooth and whole through all those watery months. It was, in the truest sense, the newborn's first protection, worn from before it ever met the air. Its usefulness does not end at birth. In the first hours of life, that same coating helps guard against the cold and keeps the skin soft as it meets for the first time the dryness of the open air. This is part of why it is often left in place rather than washed away at once, gently absorbing into the skin over the following days. a newborn arrives, in other words, still wrapped in the last of the protection the womb provided. There is something quietly moving in that thought. Even in the very way a baby's skin arrives, we can see how carefully it was tended before we ever laid eyes on it, sealed, softened, and shielded through its whole hidden beginning. A newborn comes to us, already cared for, wearing the gentle proof that it was kept safe long before it reached our arms. The very first milk a mother's body makes is not like the milk that follows. It is called colostrum, and it is thick, often a deep golden yellow, and produced only in small amounts in the first days. Small as it is one of the most precious things a newborn ever receives. Colostrum is dense with protection. It carries a rich concentration of antibodies and living defenses, passed directly from mother to baby, helping guard a newborn against illness in the days when its own body cannot yet defend itself. It also gently helps a baby's digestive system begin its work and clears the way for the first dark stool to pass. It is less a simple food than a first gift of immunity poured into a body still learning how to protect itself. Its small volume is no accident either. A newborn's stomach on the first day holds only about a teaspoon, and colostrum arrives in exactly such small concentrated amounts, a perfect match of supply to need richness where quantity is not yet possible. Everything about it is suited precisely to a body only hours old. There is a quiet wonder in this to hold on to tonight. Before a newborn can do anything to shield itself from the world, it is handed a form of protection made just for it, arriving in the very first mouthfuls it ever takes. That thick golden first milk is a mother's body reaching forward to guard a child who cannot yet be guarded any other way. Nourishment and defense together, offered in the smallest, richest measure, exactly when it is needed most. Let a loud sound break the quiet near a newborn, or let its head drop back a little too suddenly, and you will see a striking response. The baby throws its arms wide, fingers spreading its whole small body flinging open, and then a moment later it draws those arms back in toward itself, sometimes with a cry. This is the startle reflex present from birth, and it unfolds the same way every time. It is one of the oldest reflexes a newborn carries, and many believe it reaches back to a distant past when an infant clung to a parent's body. If that small body began to fall, or was jolted, the sudden fling of the arms was a grasp for something to catch hold of, an ancient reach for the safety of a parent's fur or skin. The reflex remains. Long after the reason for it has faded, still opening a newborn's arms at every startle. What looks like alarm is really an inherited attempt to hold on. A newborn cannot yet decide to steady or catch itself. It has no such control over its body. And so this reflex answers for it automatically, flinging the arms wide to seize whatever might be there, and then curling them back toward the comfort of its own body. There is something quietly touching in watching it once you know what it is. That sudden startle is not merely fright. It is a very old instinct, still doing its work, a small body jolted, reaching out in the only way it knows for something to hold and finding. When it draws its arms back in the nearest safe thing, it has itself and the arms that come to gather it close. A newborn arrives into a world full of things that could make it ill, yet its own defenses against sickness are still faint and unfinished. Into that gap steps a mother's milk, carrying something remarkable. Living antibodies passed directly from her body into her baby's, lending protection the newborn cannot yet make on its own. These antibodies are the mother's own hard-won defenses, gathered over her lifetime of meeting the world's illnesses. Through her milk she shares them, and a newborn who nurses takes in a stream of ready-made protection with every feeding. It is as if a mother lends her child her own experience of the world's dangers, guarding the baby with defenses it has not yet had the time to build for itself. Even more wonderfully, this protection can respond to need. When a mother meets a new germ, her body makes antibodies against it, and those defenses can pass into her milk, so that her baby is shielded against the very things surrounding them both. The milk adjusts to the world. The two of them share a living defense that listens and responds. There is a profound tenderness in this to hold. A newborn's body is not yet ready to protect itself, and so for a time another body protects it, not once, but continually, feeding after feeding, sharing warmth and nourishment, and a quiet shield against harm, all at once. In those first vulnerable months, a baby is guarded by a love that is not only felt, but literally given, drop by drop, straight into the small, defenseless body, learning slowly how to one day guard itself. Many newborns arrive wearing a coat of fine, soft hair, so delicate it can be easy to miss. It often covers the shoulders, the back, the forehead and ears, a downy layer far softer than the hair that will grow later. It has its own name, and it is a gentle remnant of the baby's time within the womb. This soft hair grew during pregnancy, and it did quiet, useful work there. It helped hold in place the waxy coating that protected a baby's skin in all those watery months, anchoring that protective layer against the delicate new skin. Together, the fine hair and the waxy coat guarded a body developing in fluid, a pairing of small provisions, tending a baby long before birth. After the baby is born, this soft hair is no longer needed, and so it gently goes away. Much of it may shed in the first weeks of life, quietly disappearing as the newborn settles into the world outside. Some babies arrive with a great deal of it, and others with almost none, and both are entirely ordinary, simply a matter of timing, of how far along that shedding had come by the day of birth. There is something quietly touching in noticing this soft down on a newborn. It is a visible trace of the hidden months before, a small sign of the life a baby lived before we ever met it, when its body was already being tended and protected in every gentle way. That fine, fading hair is a kind of keepsake from the womb, proof written softly on the skin of how carefully a newborn was cared for before it ever drew its first breath. A newborn begins life in a remarkably clean state, its body nearly free of the countless bacteria that will one day live within it. But that changes almost at once. In the very process of being born, a baby receives its first community of microbes, a founding population of bacteria passed to it, largely from its mother. These first tiny inhabitants matter far more than their smallness suggests. They settle into a newborn's gut and begin the long work of helping it digest milk, guarding against harmful germs, and teaching its young immune system how to tell friend from foe. This inner community will grow and shift across a lifetime, but its very beginning is seeded in those first hours, handed from one generation to the next. It is a kind of inheritance we rarely think about, not of features or fortune, but of life itself, the microscopic partners a mother passes to her child, so that the child's body can function. A newborn cannot cultivate these helpers on its own. It must receive them, and birth is the moment that gift begins to be given. There is a quiet marvel in this to sit with. We often imagine a baby arriving entirely alone, a single new life. Yet from its earliest hours, a newborn is already becoming a shared thing, home to a whole invisible community that will help keep it well for the rest of its days. Even in this hidden way, a baby is not truly on its own. It carries within it, from the very start, a living gift from the one who bore it small. Unseen companions passed hand to hand across the threshold of birth. Draw a finger gently along the sole of a newborn's foot from heel toward toes, and watch what happens. Instead of curling under as an older child's toes, with the baby's toes spread and fan wide open, the big toe often bending upward. This is a distinct reflex present at birth, and it looks quite different from anything a grown foot would do. In an adult, that same stroke usually makes the toes curl downward. In a newborn, they flare outward, and this difference is entirely normal, a sign of a nervous system, still young and unfinished, its pathways not yet fully formed. As a baby grows through the first year or two, the reflex gradually gives way to the adult response, marking in its own quiet way the steady maturing of the nervous system. Doctors have long paid attention to this small reflex precisely because of what it tells them. Its presence in a newborn is a reassuring sign of ordinary development, one of many gentle checks that a baby's nervous system is unfolding as it should. What looks like a curious quirk of the feet is really a quiet window into the growth of the whole. There is something rather wonderful in that thought. A newborn cannot tell us how its body is coming along, cannot report on the hidden work of its growing nerves. And yet its own reflexes speak for it, this fanning of the toes, among them small automatic signs that a whole intricate system is assembling itself on schedule, quietly reassuring anyone who knows to look that deep within a baby is growing, exactly as it was meant to. A mother's milk is not one fixed thing made once and always the same. It is something living and responsive, quietly shifting its makeup to match what a newborn needs, changing across the days, across a single feeding, even across the hours of the day. Over the first weeks, it moves from the thick, protective first milk toward a fuller, more plentiful milk suited to a growing baby. Within a single feeding, it can begin thinner, easing a newborn's thirst, then grow richer and creamier toward the end, satisfying its hunger. It even shifts through the day, carrying subtle signals that can help a baby distinguish daytime feedings from those in the dark of night. What a newborn receives is never quite the same twice. This responsiveness runs deeper still. When a baby is ill, a mother's milk can change to offer extra protection, its defenses rising to meet the threat. The milk seems to listen to the baby and answer, adjusting itself again and again to whatever the small body most needs in that moment. It is nourishment that pays attention. There is a profound tenderness in this to hold on to tonight. A newborn cannot ask for what it needs, cannot say when it is thirsty rather than hungry, well or unwell. And yet the milk answers, anyway, shaping itself around a baby's shifting needs without a single word being spoken. It is care so attuned that it changes its very substance for the one it feeds. A quiet, constant answering of need, with exactly enough given, freshly feeding after feeding to a body that has only to receive it. There is a reason rocking soothes a newborn, so reliably a reason older than the baby itself. For all the months before birth, a developing baby was in nearly constant gentle motion, swaying with every step its mother took, rising and falling with her movements, cradled in a world that almost never held still. Stillness, in fact, was the unfamiliar thing. So when a newborn is rocked, held and swayed in gentle arms, it is not meeting something strange. It is returning to something deeply known. That soft, rhythmic motion echoes the constant movement of the womb, and a baby's body recognizes it settling into the sway the way it once settled into every rhythm of the months before birth. The rocking speaks to it in a language of motion it has understood all along. This is part of why a fretful newborn so often calms when walked or rocked, and why perfect stillness can leave it unsettled. A baby lived its whole early existence in motion, and gentle movement carries the reassurance of that first world, whispering that all is as it should be. Rocking does not merely distract a baby. It reminds it of home. There is a lovely continuity in this to hold. When you sway with a newborn in your arms, easing it toward calm, you are unknowingly continuing something that began long before you ever held it, the endless, gentle motion that cradled it before birth. In that soft rocking, a baby finds a bridge between the world it came from and the world it has entered, and discovers in your moving arms that the comfort of that first swaying place did not end when it was born. A newborn wakes and sleeps in a pattern that can bewilder those caring for it, alert in the deep of night, drowsy in the middle of the day. This is not stubbornness or trouble. A newborn simply has no sense yet of day and night. No inner clock, tuned to the turning of light and dark. That rhythm so basic to us is something a baby must slowly grow into. Inside the womb, there was no clear day or night, only a soft, unchanging dimness. A baby had no reason to learn the difference, and so it did not. It arrives instead, following only its own needs, waking to feed when its small stomach empties, sleeping when it is spent, scattered around the clock with no regard for the sun. The world's great rhythm of light and dark means nothing to it yet. Over the first weeks and months, that begins to change. Slowly, a newborn's body learns to read the signals of day and night. The light, the quiet, even faint cues carried in a mother's milk, and its sleep gradually gathers toward the darkness, its waking toward the day. The rhythm settles in gently on its own unhurried schedule, not to be rushed. There is a kind of patience worth holding in this, especially for anyone weary from a newborn's around-the-clock waking. A baby is not refusing to rest at the right times. It has simply not yet learned that there are right times, and it will in its own season. Until then, it lives by its needs alone, trusting that the world and the arms that hold it will meet those needs whenever they arise. Whether by daylight or in the small, quiet hours of the night, there is a quiet astonishment in watching a newborn, only minutes old, laid on its mother's chest begin to move. Slowly, haltingly, with tiny pushes of its legs and small bobs of its head, the baby can inch its way upward toward the breast, and given time find it and begin to nurse almost entirely on its own. This is sometimes called the breast crawl, and it draws on several of a newborn's earliest gifts, working together. Guided by the scent of the breast, drawn by instinct, pushing with reflexes, it does not understand the baby makes its slow, determined journey. It cannot see the way clearly, cannot be told where to go, and yet something in it knows the direction and presses toward it. What looks like a helpless creature reveals in this a quiet competence. It is a striking thing to witness in a being so new. A newborn cannot hold up its own head or move with any grace, and still it can accomplish this one profound task, finding its first meal through instinct alone. The knowledge was there from birth, folded into the body, waiting only for the chance to unfold. There is something deeply moving in this to hold on to. We so often see a newborn as purely helpless, able to do nothing for itself. And yet, placed skin to skin with its mother, it can quietly manage one of the most important things a life ever requires, reaching on its own toward the source of its survival. Beneath all the softness and the wobbling uncertainty lies this ancient, patient competence, a small body that already knows, without being taught, how to find its way home. When a newborn is wrapped up snugly, its arms held gently against its body, it often grows calm, and there is a deep reason why. For all the months before birth, a baby lived within a close, enclosing embrace, held on every side by the warm, snug walls of the womb. That constant, gentle pressure was the whole texture of its world. Being wrapped recreates something of that lost closeness. The soft, firm wrapping presses gently all around a newborn, echoing the snug hold it knew before birth, and the baby's body recognizes the sensation and settles into it. What might feel confining to us feels to a newborn like a return to the safest place it has ever known. Suddenly it is held again, enclosed again, and much of its unease loosens away. This helps explain why the wide-open space of the world can be so unsettling to a newborn. After a lifetime of being closely held, the sudden freedom to fling its limbs into empty air can feel less like liberty and more like falling. Wrapping gathers that openness back, in giving a baby once more the sense of boundaries, of being contained and safe. There is a gentle wisdom in this to carry with you. A newborn does not always long for freedom. Often it longs for closeness, for the reassurance of being held on every side. When you wrap a baby snugly and feel it soften, you are giving back a piece of the world it came from, the close encircling embrace that meant for its entire early life that it was held and safe, and not alone in the vastness of open space. Newborns hiccup a great deal, far more often than older children or adults, and these frequent little hiccups are entirely ordinary. What is more curious still is that a baby was hiccuping long before it was born, deep in the womb, in the quiet months before its first breath. Exactly why remains something scientists have not fully settled. There are thoughtful ideas, but no firm and final answer. One gentle possibility is that these early hiccups helped a baby exercise the muscles it would need for breathing, a kind of quiet rehearsal for a task it could not yet truly perform. The movements may have been practiced, the body preparing in the dark for the work of drawing breath in the open air. It is worth being honest that this remains a genuine question rather than a settled fact. We can observe that babies hiccup often before birth and after, and we can offer careful guesses about why, but the full reason still rests, for now, a little beyond our reach. Not everything about a newborn has yielded its explanation. There is something rather lovely in that small mystery to sit with tonight. Even in a body we have studied so closely, there remain gentle unknowns, ordinary things a baby does whose purpose we can only wonder at. Those frequent newborn hiccups begun before birth and carried into the world are one of them, a small, harmless puzzle, a reminder that a newborn still holds a few quiet secrets doing what it does, for reasons it cannot tell us, and we cannot yet fully name. Even in the blur of a newborn's early vision, one face begins to stand out from all the rest. Within just a few days of birth, a baby will gaze longer at its own mother's face than at the face of a stranger, showing in that lingering look that it already knows her. This is a remarkable thing so early, when a newborn's sight is still so soft, and its clear vision reaches only inches. And yet, given a little time studying the face that leans near it most, a baby quickly begins to recognize it, noticing in its own way the particular features of the one who holds it most often. The mother's face becomes very soon the first face a newborn truly knows. That recognition is helped along by other senses too. A baby already knows its mother's voice and scent from before birth, and those familiar signals accompany her face, weaving together into a whole and recognizable person. Sight simply joins what smell and sound already knew, and the knowing deepens with every day the baby spends gazing up into that near and steady face. There is something quietly moving in this to hold on to. Almost before a newborn can see the world clearly at all, it begins learning by heart the face of the one who cares for it, studying it in those long, solemn gazes, committing it slowly to a memory just beginning to form. When you look down at a newborn and find it looking gravely back, holding your face in its unsteady eyes, you may be watching the very beginning of recognition itself, a baby learning look by look the first face it will love. A newborn arrives with no sense of night or day yet, even from the start. Small helps are quietly guiding it toward that rhythm, and one of them travels through its mother's milk. Milk made at night can differ gently from milk made in daylight, carrying faint signals that lean a baby toward rest. Milk produced in the dark hours can hold higher amounts of substances that encourage sleep, so that when a newborn nurses at night, it takes in not only nourishment, but a soft cue that this is a time for rest. Daytime milk carries a different balance, leaning more toward wakefulness. Without understanding any of it, a baby is being gently taught the difference between night and day through the very milk it drinks. It is one of several quiet ways a mother's body helps a newborn find its rhythm. A baby cannot read the clock or sense the turning of the light on its own, and so these small signals stand in for it, nudging the newborn by feeding towards sleeping in the dark and waking in the day. The rhythm is passed along in part through the milk itself. There is a gentle wonder in this to hold tonight. Even a baby's slow learning of night and day is not something it must manage alone. It is helped quietly and invisibly by the one who feeds it each night, feeding, carrying a soft whisper that the dark is meant for rest. In ways a newborn will never remember, it is being tucked towards sleep not only by warm arms and a soft voice, but by the very milk it drinks in the quiet hours of the night. Watch a newborn resting on its back and gently turn its head to one side, and you may see a curious pose unfold. The arm on the side the baby is facing stretches outward, while the opposite arm bends up near the head, a posture so distinctive it has been likened to a fencer holding a stance. This is a reflex present from birth, appearing on its own whenever the head turns. It is entirely ordinary, one of the many automatic movements a newborn makes without any intention behind them. Some believe it may help a baby begin to notice its own outstretched hand, the arm extending into the very space where the eyes are already turned, quietly linking what the baby sees with what its body can do. What looks like a small pose may be an early bridge between sight and movement. Like the other newborn reflexes, this one fades in its own time as a baby grows, giving way over the early months to movements the child begins to guide on purpose. Its coming and going is another quiet marker of a nervous system, maturing on schedule reflexes, stepping aside as intention slowly takes their place. There is something rather tender in watching this once you know it for what it is. A newborn cannot yet choose to reach for anything, cannot decide to look at its own hand. And yet this gentle reflex arranges its body as if to introduce the baby to itself, turning the head and extending the arm together, quietly beginning the long acquaintance between a person and the hands that will one day do their bidding. It is a small, automatic first step toward a lifetime of reaching. A newborn's cry has a particular power over the people around it, and this is no accident. That cry is pitched and shaped in a way that is remarkably difficult for a caring adult to ignore, seizing attention and pulling at something deep, refusing to be brushed aside. There is a reason for this, reaching back through a very long history. A newborn cannot do anything for itself. It cannot fetch food or warm itself or move to safety. Its cry is its single tool for summoning help, and so that cry evolved to be powerful, urgent, insistent, tuned to reach straight past a caregiver's calm and demand a response. A cry easy to ignore would have been a poor tool for survival. This is why a newborn's cry can feel so hard to bear, stirring an almost physical need to soothe it. That discomfort is doing exactly what it was meant to do. It rouses the people nearby, driving them to find the trouble and mend it, ensuring a helpless baby is not left too long in want. The cry works by making its own answer feel urgent. There is a quiet wisdom to recognize in this, even in the hardest moments of it. A newborn's cry is not simply distress spilling over. It is a lifeline. The one sure way a baby has of calling the world to its side. When you feel that pull to rise and comfort a crying newborn, that irresistible tug toward its need, you are answering a call designed across countless generations to be answered. The cry reaches you because it must, and your rising to meet it is the ancient, faithful other half of a bond built to keep the smallest and most helpless among us safe. There is a surprising reflex tucked into a newborn's body, one that reveals itself when its face meets water. Rather than gasping, a baby will often hold its breath, and its heart will slow its body, responding to the water in a quiet, coordinated way. This is a version of a reflex found across many creatures that dive, and in a newborn it is especially pronounced, strongest in the earliest months of life. When the small face is touched by water, the breath pauses, and the pulse eases the body, seeming to know without being taught how to respond. It is another of the reflexes a baby is simply born already carrying. Some think this reflex may be a lingering trace of life before birth, when a baby was surrounded entirely by fluid and did not breathe air at all. The body that lived so long in water may keep for a time an old wisdom about it, a response held over from the watery world it so recently left. Like other newborn reflexes, it fades as the baby grows. It is worth saying plainly that this reflex is not a form of safety, and a newborn must always be kept carefully protected around water. The reflex is simply a curious sign of how a new body responds, not any kind of ability to manage on its own. There is something quietly fascinating in this to sit with. A newborn carries within it these old automatic responses, echoes of where it came from and how life is shaped. That gentle slowing when water meets its face is one such echo, a small involuntary memory perhaps, of the fluid world that held it before it ever knew air. A newborn's first breath is often thought of as its very first, the opening moment of a life spent breathing. Yet, in a quiet sense, a baby had been rehearsing that motion for months, making small breathing movements deep in the womb long before there was any air to draw. There was no air to breathe in that watery world, of course, and no true breathing took place. But a baby's chest would rise and fall in practice, movements, drawing fluid gently in and out its body, quietly training the muscles it would one day need. It was preparation for a task it could not yet perform, rehearsal for the crucial first breath still to come. This gentle practice matters more than it might seem. Breathing is among the most urgent things a newborn must do the instant it is born, with no chance to learn on the spot. By practicing the motion beforehand in the safety of the womb, a baby readies the muscles and pathways of breath so that when the moment finally arrives, its body already knows the movement, even if it has never once used it for real air. There is something quietly moving in this to hold on to. Even before birth, a baby was preparing for the life ahead, rehearsing in the dark the very motions it would need to survive in the light. That first breath in the open air, sudden and startling as it is not truly the beginning of breathing at all, but the first real use of a skill, long and patiently practiced, a body arriving, already prepared in secret for the one task it could not afford to get wrong. To an outside ear, one newborn's cry may sound much like any other, but to its own parents, that cry becomes unmistakable. Within a short time, mothers and fathers grow able to pick out their own baby's cry, from among others recognizing it by its particular sound alone. This is possible because each baby's cry carries its own subtle signature, small differences in pitch, in rhythm, in tone that make it distinct. A newborn cannot yet say its own name or announce itself in any way, and yet its cry is already in a sense uniquely its own, a voice with a character all its own from the very start. Parents come to know it the way they will one day know their child's footsteps or laugh. This knowing grows quickly, born of the countless times a parent hears and answers that particular cry. Each response deepens the recognition until a parent can be roused by their own baby's voice, while another's passes them by. The bond builds itself through repetition, through answering the same small voice again and again, day and night. There is something quietly tender in this to hold. Even in something as simple as a cry, a newborn is already an individual, already itself, already recognizable to those who love it. And in learning that cry so well, parents are learning their child, beginning through this first and rawest of the baby's sounds, the long, deep acquaintance of a lifetime. Before a newborn can offer any other sign of who it is, it offers this, a voice its parents come to know by heart, the first thread in a lasting recognition of exactly this one small person and no other. A newborn may seem to take in the world without any filter, but even in its earliest days, a quiet kind of learning is at work. When a sound repeats over and over nearby, a baby gradually stops reacting to it, learning to let the familiar noise fade into the background. This is called habituation, and it is one of the simplest and earliest forms of learning a human ever shows. At first, a new sound may catch a newborn's attention, perhaps startling it, But as the same sound recurs and proves to be nothing that needs a response, the baby's reaction fades until it hardly stirs at all. It has learned in its small way that this particular sound can safely be ignored. This quiet skill is more useful than it might seem. A newborn's world is full of sounds, and if everyone demanded its full attention, it would be endlessly overwhelmed, unable to rest or focus. By learning to tune out the constant and the harmless, a baby clears space to notice what is truly new and to sink into sleep even amid the ordinary noise around it. There is something reassuring in this to hold on to tonight. A newborn is not helpless before the noise of the world. From the very beginning, it is already learning to sort what matters from what does not, to let the familiar soften into background and rest through it. That first small act of learning to ignore a steady sound is the beginning of a lifelong skill, the quiet, essential art of letting the ordinary fade so that peace can be found even in a world that is rarely truly silent. Among the many things that soothe a newborn, one of the gentlest is the simplest, the scent of its mother. A baby that breathes in that familiar smell often grows calmer its distress, easing its small body, settling toward peace. The scent alone can quiet it even before it is touched or fed. This works because smell is one of a newborn's earliest and surest ways of knowing. A baby comes to recognize its mother's particular scent very quickly, and that smell becomes tied to comfort, to closeness, to the safety of being cared for. When the familiar scent reaches a newborn, it carries the message that the one who tends it is near, and the baby relaxes into that reassurance. The nose leads it gently toward calm. This is part of why simply being held close can soothe a fretful newborn so well, even before any rocking or feeding begins. Drawn near a baby is wrapped at once in the familiar scent of the person holding it, and that alone begins to settle it, the smell of safety reaching it before anything else can. Closeness comforts, in part, because of what it lets a baby breathe in. There is something quietly beautiful in this to carry with you. A newborn cannot yet understand words of comfort or know that it is safe by reason, and yet it can be soothed by something as soft and wordless as a scent, calmed simply by breathing in the smell of the one who loves it. In a life still too new for words, the familiar scent of a caregiver becomes one of the first languages of comfort a baby ever learns, whispering with every quiet breath that all is well. A newborn may seem far too young to learn anything at all, and yet even in the earliest days, a simple kind of learning is quietly possible. A baby can begin to expect that one thing will follow another, coming to anticipate what tends to come next when the same small sequence repeats. Picture a gentle example. If a certain touch or sound comes just before a feeding, again and again, a newborn may begin to respond to that signal, its body readying for the milk it has learned to expect. The baby is forming a small link between one thing and another, an early thread of learning that the world holds patterns it can come to know. This early ability, modest as it is, marks the true beginning of learning from experience. A newborn is not merely reacting to each moment as though it were entirely new. It is starting in the smallest way, to gather how its world tends to unfold, to sense the shape of what usually comes next. From this quiet seed, all later learning slowly grows. There is something rather wonderful in this to hold on to tonight. Even a newborn, so new to everything, is already beginning the lifelong work of making sense of its world, learning its gentle rhythms, and coming to expect its kindnesses. When a baby settles at a familiar signal of comfort about to arrive, it is showing this early learning at work, trusting that the good thing it has come to expect is truly on its way. Bit by bit, the world is becoming a place a newborn can begin to understand, and to trust one small learned pattern at a time. A newborn's sense of smell is so finely tuned that it can distinguish its own mother's milk from the milk of another woman, telling them apart by scent alone. Offered the smell of its own mother's milk beside a stranger's, a baby will turn toward the one that is its mother's, drawn to the familiar over the unfamiliar. This is a remarkable feat of recognition for a being so young. A newborn has learned in only its first days the particular scent of its own mother and her milk, and can pick it out with confidence. What might seem to us a subtle difference is to a newborn's keen nose, a clear and meaningful distinction one it uses to find its way toward what is truly its own. This recognition serves a gentle purpose. By knowing its mother's scent so surely, a newborn is helped toward the source of its nourishment and comfort, guided by smell toward the one who feeds it. In a body not yet able to see clearly or move with purpose, this sure sense of smell becomes a reliable thread, leading always back to the mother it already knows. There is something quietly moving in this to hold, almost before a newborn can do anything else. It can recognize its own mother, and it does so through the faithful, ancient sense of smell, singling her out from all the world by scent alone. That early recognition is one of the first ways a baby says, in the only way it can, that it knows who its mother is, turning toward her particular scent again and again, choosing her quietly and unerringly from everyone else. A newborn cannot understand a word, and yet it already has a preference woven deep within it, a leaning toward the particular rhythm of the language it heard before it was born. Given a choice between the familiar cadence of that language and the different beat of another, a baby responds more warmly to the one it knows. It is not the meaning a newborn recognizes, but the music. Every language carries its own rhythm, its own pattern of stresses and pauses, its own rise and fall, and a baby steeped in one of those patterns through the final months in the womb arrives already tuned to it. The familiar rhythm feels like home. A foreign one registers as something other. This preference is one of many signs of how much a baby was listening before birth. Far from floating in silence, a developing baby was absorbing the deep music of the speech around it, learning the shape of its family's language long before it could ever grasp a single word. It was preparing quietly to belong to the world of voices waiting for it. There is a gentle wonder in this to carry with you. When you speak to a newborn in the language it has been hearing all along, some part of it recognizes the rhythm, the familiar music of the words it knew before birth. Before meaning ever arrives, before the first word is understood, a baby already carries the melody of its mother tongue inside it, drawn to the sound of home. It has been learning its family's language since before it could breathe air, and it arrives already leaning quietly toward the voices it somehow already knows. A newborn cries from its very first day, and yet those early cries come without tears, the small face crumpling and wailing, while the cheeks stay dry. Real tears do not arrive until weeks after the crying has begun, quietly appearing only once the body is ready to make them. The glands that produce tears are present at birth, but at first, they make only enough moisture to keep the eyes healthy, not enough to spill over in weeping. It takes some weeks, sometimes a couple of months, before those glands mature enough to produce visible tears during a cry. Until then, a newborn's distress comes in sound alone, its voice carrying the whole of its need without a single tear to accompany it. When the first true tears do finally come, glistening on a small face, they mark a quiet passage, a body maturing, growing into the fuller shape of how it will one day cry. It is one of the many small milestones of these early weeks, so easily missed, and yet a real sign of a newborn slowly developing day by day into all that it will become. There is something tender in this to hold on to, especially for anyone who has comforted a tearless newborn. That early, dry-eyed cry is not a lesser kind of sorrow, not a smaller need. It is simply the only way a baby can yet call for help, honest and complete in itself. The arms that answer a tearless cry answer something no less real for the lack of tears. And when at last the true tears come, they do not make a baby's need any greater than it always was. They only show in shining drops. A small body still gently growing into itself. There is a quiet mercy tucked into a newborn's love of sweetness. Beyond simply pleasing a baby, a sweet taste can genuinely soothe it, easing a small moment of discomfort and helping a newborn through a passing distress. A drop of something sweet can bring real, gentle comfort. This has been observed with care, and it is why a little sweetness is sometimes used to calm a baby through a brief and necessary discomfort. The sweet taste seems to reach past a newborn's distress and quiet it, offering a small measure of relief to a body that has so few ways of comforting itself. It is a soothing written right into the sense of taste. There is a fittingness to this that runs deep. The very first taste a newborn knows, the gentle sweetness of its mother's milk, is tied from the start to comfort and to being cared for. Sweetness and safety are joined in a baby's earliest experience, so that a sweet taste carries not only pleasure, but the deep reassurance of nourishment and closeness. The comfort is woven in with the food itself. There is something tender in this to hold on to tonight. A newborn cannot soothe its own hurts, cannot reason its way past discomfort, or tell itself that a hard moment will pass. And yet it carries within it this small built-in comfort, a soothing that can be offered through something as simple and kind as sweetness. In a body with so few defenses of its own, even the sense of taste becomes a gentle ally. One more quiet way that a newborn and those who love it can ease it through the small pains of being so newly tenderly alive. A newborn's body is still learning many of the tasks it will one day perform without thought, and among them is the simple act of sweating. In the earliest days, a baby barely sweats at all, its cooling glands not yet fully working, still slow to do their part in keeping the body from overheating. Sweating is one of the main ways an older body cools itself, releasing moisture that carries heat away. But a newborn's sweat glands are still immature, unable yet to cool it well, and so a baby cannot manage its own temperature the way an older child can. It struggles to shed heat when too warm, just as it cannot shiver to make heat when too cold. Its body caught, still learning both directions. This is why a newborn depends so much on the care around it, to stay comfortable, kept from growing too warm or too cold by those who tend it. A baby cannot yet regulate itself well against heat or chill, and so gentle attention to its warmth becomes an important kindness. One of the quiet ways a newborn is kept safe, while its own body slowly matures into these tasks. There is something quietly humbling in this to sit with. So many things we manage without a single thought, a newborn cannot yet do at all, its body still assembling even these most basic abilities. The care that keeps a baby comfortably warm or cool is doing for a time what the newborn cannot yet do for itself. And in that gentle tending lies one more small proof of how completely a new life leans on the love around it, held in comfort by hands that quietly answer needs it cannot yet meet on its own. Though a newborn's vision is soft, and its clear sight reaches only inches, it can already do something quietly purposeful with its eyes. When a face moves slowly before it, a baby can track that face, following it with careful, deliberate movements of its eyes, holding it in view as it drifts from one side to the other. This is one of the earliest signs of a newborn using its sight with intention rather than merely staring. It works best when the movement is slow and the face is near within the small circle where a baby can see most clearly. A newborn, drawn to faces above all other things, will hold a face in its gaze and turn its eyes to keep it unwilling in its small way to let it go. There is a tender kind of effort in this, visible to anyone who watches for it. A newborn cannot yet move its head with much control, cannot reach or follow with its body, and so it follows with its eyes alone, straining gently to keep a beloved face in sight. That careful tracking is one of the first ways a baby reaches toward another person, holding on with its gaze when it cannot hold on with its hands. There is something quietly moving in being followed by a newborn's eyes. When you lean near and move slowly, and a baby turns its gaze to keep you in view, it is telling you in one of the only ways it can that you matter to it, that of all the blurry world, you are the thing worth watching. In that slow, deliberate following lies an early and wordless act of connection. A small body reaching out with its eyes toward the face it does not want to lose. A newborn's head sometimes arrives looking a little unexpected, slightly pointed or cone-shaped rather than round. This is entirely ordinary, a gentle result of the journey of birth, and within days the head settles into a rounder, softer shape. The reason lies in the softness of a newborn's skull. A baby's head is not one solid piece of bone, but several plates held apart by soft gaps, able to shift and overlap slightly. During the tight passage of birth, those plates can move and mold, letting the head narrow enough to make its way safely into the world. The cone shape is simply the sign of that yielding a head that gave way exactly as it was meant to. Because the skull is so soft, and its plates so movable, the shaping is temporary. Over the first days of life, the head gradually rounds out the plates, easing back and the gentle point of birth smoothing away. What looked briefly unusual soon settles into the familiar round shape, the molding of birth quietly undone. There is a quiet wisdom in this to hold on to. The very softness that let a newborn's head mold on its way into the world is the same softness that lets it round out again afterward, and the same softness that leaves room for the brain to grow in the months ahead. What can look fragile is really a design of gentle genius, a head made soft on purpose so that a baby could be born safely and go on growing without limit. That brief cone shape is not a flaw but a sign, the visible mark of a head wise enough to yield when it needed to, and to recover in its own good time. The bond between a newborn and its mother runs so deep that it works even through the body itself in ways beyond anyone's choosing. The sound of a baby's cry can prompt a mother's body to release her milk, readying nourishment in answer to a need she has only heard. A mother need not decide this or even think of it. Hearing her baby cry, sometimes merely thinking of her baby, can set in motion the quiet response that lets her milk begin to flow. Her body answers the cry on its own, preparing to feed the child before a single conscious thought is formed. The call for food and the readying of food are joined together, one summoning the other. This is one of the most striking signs of how closely a mother and her newborn are bound. The cry that reaches so powerfully into a caregiver's mind reaches in a mother all the way into her body, stirring a physical response tuned exactly to her baby's need. Baby and mother are linked in a loop of need and answer that runs below all awareness, each shaping the other without a word. There is something quietly profound in this to hold on to tonight. A newborn's cry is not only heard. In a mother, it is answered by the body itself, nourishment rising to meet the very call for it. Before a mother can even lift her child, her body has already begun to respond, readying the milk her baby is asking for. In that unbidden answer lies one of the deepest truths of these early days, that a newborn and the one who feeds it are woven together so closely that a single cry can move not only a heart, but a body toward care. In a newborn's first days, its pupils tend to stay small, remaining narrow even in dim surroundings. This is not a flaw, but a quiet protection, a way of shielding brand new eyes from a world suddenly full of light. Consider where a baby has come from. For all the months before birth, it lived in near darkness, its eyes never once meeting bright light. To arrive suddenly in the lit-up world could be overwhelming for eyes so new and unaccustomed. Small pupils let in less light, softening that first encounter, guarding the newborn's eyes from too much brightness all at once. As the baby grows, and its eyes adjust to living amid light, its pupils begin to work more fully, widening and narrowing as an older eye does, responding freely to bright and dim. The early smallness gives way over the first weeks to the ordinary changing of the pupils once the eyes have grown, ready for the full range of light around them. There is a gentle thoughtfulness in this to notice. Even in something as small as the size of its pupils, a newborn's body seems to ease it slowly into the world, letting in only a little of the overwhelming brightness at first, sparing eyes that have never known light from meeting too much of it too soon. It is one more of the countless quiet ways a baby is protected in its earliest days, guarded not only by the arms around it, but by the gentle wisdom of its own body. A newborn does not have to face the full glare of the world all at once. Even its eyes are given time, opening slowly at their own soft pace, to all the light that waits. A newborn comes into the world carrying a hidden provision, a store of iron laid down before birth and held in reserve for the months ahead. This quiet stockpile is one of the many ways a baby arrives already prepared for the life waiting beyond the womb. Iron is something the body needs, and a mother's milk, for all its richness, is not especially high in it. So a baby is given a supply beforehand, gathering iron in the final stretch of pregnancy and keeping it in reserve enough to carry it through the first several months, while it lives mainly on milk. The store is timed to last until other foods gradually begin to add to it. This is one small piece of a larger pattern in how a newborn is provisioned. A baby does not arrive able to gather everything it needs from the moment it is born. Instead, much is prepared in advance and tucked away so that a helpless newborn is not left wanting in the meantime. The body plans ahead, storing up quietly against the needs of the months to come. There is something rather touching in this to hold on to. Even before it is born, a baby is being provided for in ways it will never know, given reserves to draw on through the vulnerable early time when it can do so little for itself. That quiet store of iron is a kind of foresight, written into the body, a provision laid up in advance, so that a newborn arriving so unready in many ways still carries within it enough of what it needs. A baby comes to us not empty-handed, but quietly stocked with small gifts, prepared for the journey before the journey ever begins. Lay a newborn down, and you may notice how it tends to curl in on itself, arms and legs drawn close, its whole small body folding gently inward. This is the natural posture of a newborn, and it is a lingering echo of the shape it held for so long before birth. In the close quarters of the womb, a baby was folded snugly, limbs tucked in against its body, curled into the small space it filled. That curled shape was its posture for months, the only way of holding itself it had ever known. When a baby is born, its body keeps that folded form for a while, still curling inward as though the enclosing walls of the womb were near. This is part of why being wrapped snugly or held close so often soothes a newborn. Such closeness returns a baby to the gentle boundaries it knew before birth, letting it hold once more the curled enclosed shape that means safety to it. The wide open freedom to stretch into empty space is unfamiliar, even unsettling. The old curled closeness feels like home. Gradually, over the early weeks, a baby uncurls its limbs, loosening as it grows used to the open world and begins to stretch into it. There is something quietly tender in this to hold. That inward curl is a newborn still carrying the shape of where it came from, its body remembering the womb even now, in the way it folds itself small. When a baby draws its limbs in close, it is holding without knowing it the posture of its whole early life, the gentle curl that was its first and only shape. And when you gather it close and let it fold against you, you give it back a piece of that first safe place where it was held small and warm and near. A newborn's very first breath is a moment unlike any other in a human life. In that single instant, air rushes into lungs that have never once held it, filling and opening a space that until then had known only fluid. Nothing in a person's life is ever again quite so new. Before birth, a baby's lungs were not empty, but full of fluid, and no air passed through them at all. The oxygen a baby needed came another way entirely, through its mother. The lungs waited, formed and ready, but never used, holding their breath in a sense across the whole of that watery life. Then, at birth, everything changes. In a moment the fluid clears, and with that first cry, air floods in, and the lungs begin the work they will do without pause for the rest of the person's days. It is an extraordinary transition, one of the most dramatic a body ever makes. In the span of a few seconds, a newborn shifts from a life where it never breathed to a life where it must breathe constantly, its lungs opening for the very first time to the air that will sustain it always. That first breath is a true beginning, the start of something that will not stop until life itself does. There is something quietly awe-inspiring in this to hold on to tonight. Every breath you take, so constant you never think of it once, had a single instant, when your own lungs opened for the very first time. That first breath is among the most important a person ever draws, and each of us has taken it. In the steady rise and fall of a newborn's breathing lies the echo of that first great opening. A body that has crossed in one instant from a life without air into a life sustained by it, breath after faithful breath. When a newborn's hand closes tightly around an offered finger, gripping with surprising strength, it is doing something very old, echoing a time when an infant's survival depended on holding fast to a parent's body. That strong little grasp reaches back across a long history. In the distant past of our ancestors, a baby able to cling tightly to a parent's fur was a baby more likely to stay safe, held close through travel and danger by the strength of its own grip. That need has faded, but the reflex remains, still closing a newborn's hand around whatever touches its palm. An inheritance handed down across countless generations. The grip no longer clings to fur, it clings now to a finger. There is a striking poignancy in this to sit with. A newborn cannot yet choose to hold on to anyone, cannot decide to reach out and grasp with intention, and yet its hand closes anyway, gripping with all the ancient strength of a body built long ago to hold on for dear life. That reflex carries a memory far older than the baby, a trace of how infants once survived. There is something quietly moving in feeling that small hand tighten around your finger. It is not affection, not yet, not a choice the baby has made. It is something older even than affection, an ancient instinct still whispering its single message through the newborn's grip. Hold on, stay close, do not let go of the one who carries you. In that automatic clasp lies the echo of a bond stretching back beyond memory, a small body still reaching, as its ancestors did, for the safety of being held. And when you feel it grip, you are on the answering end of that ancient reaching, offering in a finger the closeness it was born knowing to seek. A newborn is drawn to warmth, and above all to the warmth of a chest, to rest against, seeking that closeness, the way it once sought the enclosing nearness of the womb. The pull toward being held close is one of a baby's deepest and earliest longings. Before birth, a baby knew nothing but closeness, held warmly on every side, never for a moment alone or apart. That constant nearness was the whole of its world. When a newborn is laid against a warm chest, it returns to something of that lost closeness, feeling once more the warmth and the steady presence of another body near, and it settles deeply into that familiar comfort. This is why skin against skin soothes a newborn so completely, and why a baby held to a chest so often grows calm and content. It is not only the warmth, though the warmth matters, it is the closeness itself, the return to being held near another living body that speaks to a newborn of safety in the oldest language it knows. To be held close is to be told wordlessly that all is well. There is something deeply tender in this to hold on to tonight. A newborn does not long first for space or freedom. It longs to be close, to be held, to rest against the warmth of someone who loves it, just as it was held close through all the months before birth. When you draw a baby to your chest and feel it soften and settle there, you are answering that longing, giving back the nearness it has known since before it drew breath. In that simple closeness, a newborn finds again the comfort of its first world, and learns, held warm against you, That even out here in the wide new air it is still held, still near, still not alone. In its earliest days, a newborn held upright, with its feet touching a surface, will make small stepping motions, its legs moving as if to walk. Then within a couple of months this stepping fades and disappears, only to return much later and transformed as the baby's very first true steps. For a long time it was thought this early stepping simply vanished its purpose, a mystery. But many now believe it never truly disappears at all. Instead it goes quiet, waiting beneath the surface, and returns near the end of the first year, when the baby is finally strong enough to stand and to walk in earnest. The pattern was there from the beginning. The strength and balance to use it simply had to grow. There is a lovely continuity in this to hold on to. The walking that lies so far in a newborn's future is in some faint form, already present on the very first day, sketched into a body that will not truly walk for many months. That early stepping is like a promise made at the beginning, tucked away and kept until the baby at last grows ready to fulfill it. There is something quietly hopeful in this to carry with you. So much of what a newborn will one day become is already there at the start, waiting patiently within it, needing only time to unfold. The helpless baby who cannot yet hold up its head already carries in its small stepping feet the earliest trace of the walking to come. And when at last those first real steps arrive near the close of the first year, they are not something wholly new, but the return of something present all along, a promise the body made on the very first day, patiently kept and joyfully at last made good. A heartbeat soothes a newborn like almost nothing else, and the reason reaches back to the very beginning of its life. For all the months in the womb, a baby was surrounded by the steady sound of a heartbeat, close and constant, the one rhythm that never once stopped. It is the oldest sound a newborn knows. That heartbeat was the ceaseless background of a baby's entire existence before birth, present in every moment, through sleep and waking alike, from long before the baby could even be said to hear. So when a newborn hears a heartbeat again held against a chest near that steady pulse, it meets the most familiar sound in all its short life, and its body answers with calm. The heartbeat means in the deepest way it can mean anything, that all is as it has always been. This is why holding a baby close, chest to chest, soothes it so surely and so well. You are giving back the oldest comfort it has ever known, the constant heartbeat that meant for the whole of its life before birth that it was safe and held and not alone. No lullaby is older than this. No comfort reaches back further. There is something profoundly reassuring in this to hold on to tonight. A newborn does not have to be taught what safety sounds like, does not have to learn it slowly in the world. It already knows, carrying that knowledge from before it was born. And when you draw a baby near enough to hear your heart, you speak to it in the very first language it ever knew, a slow and steady beat that has always, from its earliest moment, meant that it is safe and cared for, and not alone. A newborn is deeply attuned to the people who hold it, so much so that it can begin to match its own state to theirs. When a caregiver is calm, breathing slowly and steadily, a baby held near can settle toward that same calm, its own rhythms, easing to meet the quiet of the one who holds it. This gentle attunement is one of the ways a newborn borrows steadiness from those who care for it. A baby cannot yet fully calm itself. Its own systems are new and easily unsettled, but held close to a calm and steady body, it can catch some of that steadiness, its breathing, and its unease, softening toward the peace it senses near. Calm, in a way, passes quietly from one body to the other. This is why the state of a caregiver matters so much to a newborn, more than words could. A baby feels the difference between calm arms and anxious ones, between a body at peace and a body on edge, and it responds to what it feels settling most easily against someone who is themselves settled. Your own calm becomes a gift you give without a word, simply by being calm while you hold. There is something quietly beautiful in this to carry with you tonight. A newborn and the one who holds it are joined in a gentle exchange. The baby drawing steadiness from the caregiver's peace, calmed not by anything said, but by the simple, wordless presence of someone at rest. When you slow your own breathing and grow quiet with a baby in your arms, you offer it something it cannot yet make for itself, a borrowed calm, passed body to body, teaching a newborn, in the oldest and softest of ways, how it feels to be at peace. Long before a newborn understands a single word, it can sense the feeling carried in a familiar voice, hearing the warmth or the worry beneath the words, even when the words themselves mean nothing to it. A baby listens to how something is said far more than to what is said. It is the tone that reaches a newborn, the melody of feeling in a voice, the softness of tenderness, the tightness of worry, the ease of calm. A baby cannot grasp the meaning of the words, but it feels their emotional weather, sensing whether the voice above it is gentle or tense, at peace or on edge, and it responds to that feeling rather than to any meaning. This is why the way we speak to a newborn matters so much, quite apart from what we say. A baby soothed by a warm and gentle voice is responding to the tenderness in it, not to the words, just as it may grow uneasy at a sharp or anxious tone it cannot understand. The feeling in a voice reaches a newborn directly, wordlessly, long before language arrives to carry meaning. There is something quietly moving in this to hold on to. A newborn may not know what you are saying, but it knows how you feel as you say it, hearing the love in a voice before it can ever understand the words that voice will one day speak. When you murmur gently to a baby, it is the warmth you offer that reaches it, the tenderness beneath the sound. In those first wordless weeks, a familiar, loving voice speaks a language older than words, and a newborn understands it perfectly, hearing, in the simple music of how it is spoken to, that it is loved. A newborn often grows calm the moment it is swaddled, wrapped snugly with its limbs held gently against its body, and there is a tender reason why. To a baby fresh from the close quarters of the womb, the open space of the world can feel vast, even overwhelming, and being wrapped gathers that vastness back into something small and safe. Before birth, a baby knew only closeness, held snugly on every side, its limbs folded against the enclosing walls that surrounded it. It had never known open space at all. So the sudden freedom to fling its arms into empty air can feel less like liberty than like falling unmoored and boundaryless, with nothing near to press against. Swaddling answers that unease, wrapping a newborn once more in gentle boundaries, giving back the snug closeness it knew before birth. Held on every side again, a baby feels contained and safe, and much of its distress loosens away. What might seem to us confining feels to a newborn like a return to the safest place it has ever known. There is a quiet wisdom in this to hold on to tonight. A newborn does not always long for freedom. Often it longs for the reassurance of being held close, of having boundaries near, of not being lost in open space. When you wrap a baby snugly and feel it settle, you are giving back a piece of the world it came from, the encircling closeness that meant safety through its whole early life. In that gentle wrapping, a newborn finds again the comfort of being contained and learns, held snug and warm, that the vast new world need not be faced all at once, but can be met slowly from within the safe, small circle of being held. Of all the features of a face, one draws a newborn's gaze above the rest. A baby is especially drawn to eyes holding its own unsteady gaze on the eyes of the person looking down at it, meeting that gaze and lingering there. Something in a newborn reaches for the eyes that reach back. This pull toward eyes runs deep and appears early. Eyes are where connection lives, where one person meets another, and a newborn seems to sense this from the very start, seeking out the gaze of another and holding to it. Amid the blur of its early vision, the eyes of a caregiver are among the things a baby most wants to find and keep in view. It is one of the first ways a newborn reaches toward another person. There is a quiet intimacy in being met by a newborn's gaze in this way. A baby cannot yet speak to you, cannot smile at you with meaning, cannot reach for you with its hands, and yet it can find your eyes and hold them, meeting your gaze with a solemn steadiness, connecting with you in one of the only ways yet open to it. That meeting of eyes is an early language of closeness, spoken before any words exist. There is something deeply moving in this to carry with you tonight. When a newborn locks its gaze onto yours and holds it, studying your eyes with quiet attention, it is telling you in the oldest and wordless way that you are the one it wants to see, the person it is reaching toward across the space between you. In that shared gaze lies the very beginning of connection. Two people meeting through the eyes, a newborn finding in the person, looking back, the closeness it was born already seeking. There is a small familiar sequence in a newborn's early days worth pausing over. Lifted suddenly, a baby may startle, its arms flinging wide in alarm, and then gathered close and drawn into warmth. It soothes the startle, melting into calm as it settles against the one who holds it. That whole arc from startle to soothing unfolds again and again. The startle comes first, an old reflex answering any sudden motion, flinging the arms wide as if to catch hold of something. But then comes the gathering close, the warmth, the steady arms drawing the baby in, and the alarm gives way. Held near and warm, a newborn finds its calm, again the reflex of fear yielding to the deeper comfort of being held. Fear rises, and then closeness answers it. There is a gentle rhythm in this that speaks to something true about a newborn's whole early life. The world startles it constantly, full of sudden sounds and motions and newness it cannot understand. And again, the answer to that startle is the same: to be gathered close, held warm, drawn near to someone who loves it, until the fear eases and calm returns. Closeness is the reliable reply to a newborn's every alarm. There is something quietly reassuring in this to hold on to tonight. A newborn will startle many times in these early days, met by so much it cannot yet make sense of. And each time the remedy is near and simple, to be lifted and held and drawn into warmth until the small body softens and settles once more. In that steady answering of fear with closeness lies one of the deepest comforts of these first days. A newborn learning startle by startle and soothing by soothing, that whenever the world alarms it, there are arms that will gather it close, and it will be calm again. A newborn hears not only the sound of a familiar voice, but the feeling carried within it, sensing warmth or worry in the tone long before it can understand a single word. What reaches a baby is the emotion beneath the words, the tenderness or tension in how something is said. This is why a gentle voice soothes a newborn so surely, quite apart from any meaning. A baby feels the softness in a loving tone and grows calm, just as it may sense unease in a sharp or anxious one, responding always to the feeling rather than the words. The emotional weather of a voice reaches a newborn directly, wordless and clear, long before language ever arrives to carry meaning. There is a tenderness in this that shapes how a baby is best spoken to in these early weeks. It matters less what words are chosen than what feeling fills them, for a newborn drinks in the warmth or the worry, not the words. A calm and loving voice speaks comfort to a baby in a language older than speech, one it understands perfectly from the very first day. There is something quietly beautiful in this to hold on to tonight. Long before a newborn knows what any word means, it knows how you feel as you speak, hearing the love in your voice before it can grasp a single thing you say. When you murmur softly to a baby, it is the tenderness you carry that reaches it, the warmth beneath the sound. And so in these wordless early days, you can tell a newborn it is loved without needing the right words at all, for it hears your love directly, in the gentle music of your voice, and understands it completely long before it will ever learn to speak. There is a kind of comfort that gathers several soothing things into one, and a newborn settles into it, most deeply of all. Held close, kept warm, and gently swayed all at once, a baby often reaches its calmest state, sinking into a peace that any one of these comforts alone might not quite bring. Together, they speak to a newborn in several familiar languages at the same time. The closeness returns it to the nearness of the womb. The warmth wraps it in comfort. The gentle sway echoes the constant motion it knew before birth. Each of these carries its own quiet reassurance, and offered together they weave a comfort rich and complete, meeting a baby's need for closeness, warmth, and motion all at once. This is why a newborn so often calms most fully when it is held, and rocked, and kept warm together, cradled in arms that move gently through the quiet. The combination gathers up all the deepest comforts of its first world, and offers them at once, and a baby's whole small body loosens into the fullness of that peace. It is the closest thing to returning home a newborn can find out here in the open air. There is something quietly lovely in this to carry into the evening. When you gather a baby close, keep it warm and sway it softly all at once, you are giving it together nearly every comfort it has ever known, wrapping it in the whole tender memory of the world it came from. And in that gathered comfort, a newborn finds its deepest rest, held and warm, and swaying, drifting toward the calm of being wholly, completely cared for. It is easy to see a newborn's constant need to be held as a kind of helplessness, one more sign of how little it can do. But that need is not weakness at all. It is a quiet design, an ancient way of drawing near the very care that keeps a baby alive. A newborn is meant to be held. Its longing for closeness is not a flaw to be outgrown, but a purpose to be answered. A pull that keeps a baby near the warmth and nourishment and protection it cannot provide for itself. By needing to be held, a newborn draws its caregivers close, and in that closeness finds everything it needs to survive. The need itself is the design working exactly as intended. Seen this way, a baby's helplessness takes on a different meaning. It is not simply that a newborn cannot manage alone. It is that a newborn was never meant to be alone, that its very being is arranged around closeness, around being held and tended and kept near. The need for care is not a failing, but the truest expression of how a human life begins in connection, in dependence, in the arms of another. There is something profoundly comforting in this to hold on to tonight. When a newborn asks to be held again and again, it is not failing to be strong. It is being exactly what it is meant to be, reaching for the closeness that is its birthright and its design. And when you answer that need, gathering a baby close once more, you are not merely indulging a weakness, but fulfilling a purpose, completing an ancient arrangement in which a helpless newborn and the ones who love it are bound together by need and by care. To be held is not a newborn's weakness, it is its way of being kept. For all its helplessness, a newborn holds one quiet power, and it is the power on which its whole survival rests. The ability to draw a caring adult near, and to keep them near gently and steadily through everything it cannot yet do for itself. A newborn cannot feed or warm or protect itself. Everything it needs must come through the care of another. And so a baby is made in every part, to summon and hold that care with its cry that cannot be ignored, its gaze that seeks out eyes, its scent and softness, and its need to be held. All of it works together to keep a loving adult close and attentive. Everything about a newborn is arranged toward this single end. Its beauty, its helplessness, its every reflex and instinct, all serve to bind a caregiver to it, to draw that person near and keep them there, tending and protecting the baby through its most vulnerable time. A newborn survives not by its own strength, but by its power to be loved and cared for, to keep the ones it needs close beside it. There is something quietly profound in this to hold on to tonight. A newborn's greatest strength is not any strength of its own, but its ability to draw out the care of others, to summon love and hold it near. In its very helplessness lies its safety, for that helplessness calls forth exactly the care that keeps it alive. And when you find yourself drawn to a newborn, unable to leave it in want, bound to it by something you cannot quite name, you are answering that ancient power at work, a small, helpless being drawing you gently and steadily near, and in doing so, quietly, ensuring its own survival through the love it calls forth in you. There is a quiet exchange that happens when a newborn is held skin to skin against a parent, and it moves in both directions at once. The baby calms its heartbeat, and breathing steadying against the warmth of the body that holds it, and the parent calms too, soothed by the nearness of the child. Closeness settles them both. For the newborn, the parent's body acts as a gentle steadier, warming it, calming it, helping its new and unsteady rhythms find their footing. And for the parent, holding the baby close brings its own quiet peace, a settling of the heart, an easing that comes from the simple nearness of the child they love. Each gives the other something. Each is soothed by the other's presence. This is one of the loveliest truths of these early days, that comfort flows both ways. It is not only the baby who is calmed by being held, the one holding is calmed as well. The two of them drawn together into a shared quiet, each steadying the other simply by being near. Closeness is not a gift that only one of them receives, but a peace they make together. There is something deeply moving in this, to carry with you into the evening. When a parent draws a newborn to their bare chest, they are not only soothing the baby, they are being soothed in return, the two of them wrapped together in a calm that belongs to both. In that shared closeness held skin to skin in the quiet, a newborn and the one who loves it are each made peaceful by the other, joined in a gentle comfort that neither could quite find alone. They calm each other, and in doing so they rest together warm and near in the oldest kind of peace there is. A newborn's heart beats quickly, and its small body is easily unsettled, yet something as simple as a gentle, steady voice can help slow that racing heart and ease a baby toward rest. The sound of calm spoken softly reaches a newborn and settles it. A voice that is low and even unhurried and warm seems to lend a baby some of its own steadiness, helping its quick rhythms slow and its unease loosen toward peace. The newborn cannot understand the words, but it feels the calm in them, and its body answers, easing gently toward the quiet the voice offers. Steadiness passes from the voice into the child. This is part of why a soft, unhurried voice soothes a newborn so well, quite apart from anything it says. A baby drinks in the calm of a gentle voice, its own agitation quieting in response, drawn toward rest by the simple steadiness of the sound. The voice becomes a kind of anchor, holding a newborn steady through the moments that might otherwise unsettle it. There is something quietly tender in this to hold on to now, as the evening softens toward night. A newborn can be carried toward rest by nothing more than the gentle sound of a calm and loving voice, its racing heart slowing, its small body easing, soothed by the steady murmur of someone who loves it. And perhaps as you sit here in the quiet, you can feel a little of that same soothing yourself, the way a calm and steady voice speaking softly seems to slow the heart and gentle the whole body toward rest. Let your own breathing ease and your own heart slow, carried like a newborn toward the deep quiet where rest begins. Here in the quiet, let us slow down together the way a newborn slows beside someone at peace. A baby held close to a person breathing slowly and calmly will often begin to breathe more evenly itself, its own breath settling toward the gentle rhythm of the one who holds it. Calm passes softly from one body to another. A newborn cannot yet steady its own breathing well. It comes unevenly at first, quick and then slow, still finding its rhythm. But held near a calm and steady body, a baby can catch some of that steadiness, its breath easing toward the slow, even rhythm it feels close beside it. It borrows calm simply by being near. You might let yourself feel this now in your own body as the night grows still. Notice your breathing and let it slow. The way a caregiver's slow breath gently teaches a newborn's breath to follow. There is no effort needed, only an easing, a letting go, your breath growing long and quiet all on its own. And as your breath slows, something in you settles too, the way a baby settles beside a calm and breathing chest. The steadiness you offer a newborn is the same steadiness you can offer yourself now, breathing slowly, softly, letting the day loosen its hold. There is a gentle kinship in this to rest in tonight. The calm that soothes a newborn's breath is the same calm waiting for you here, in the simple act of breathing slow and easy in the quiet. Let your breath be long and gentle, like the breath a baby learns to follow, and let it carry you softly toward rest. Imagine now the soft sway of being gently rocked the way a baby is carried toward sleep in slow and tender arms. That gentle motion, rising and falling, easing side to side, has soothed newborns toward rest since the very beginning, echoing the constant sway they knew before they were born. There is something in that rhythm that speaks straight to a baby's need for rest. A slow and steady motion that loosens its hold on waking and lets sleep drift near. Rocked softly, a newborn's eyes grow heavy, its small body slackens, and it slips toward sleep, carried there on the gentle tide of being moved. The sway does the quiet work of easing a baby down into rest. Let yourself feel a little of that same gentle motion now, even in stillness. The slow, imagined sway of being held and rocked. Feel how the body longs to soften into it, how the mind grows quiet when it senses that slow and tender rhythm, the same rhythm that carries a newborn down towards sleep. You need not do anything but let it hold you. There is a deep and ancient comfort in this to rest in tonight. The soft sway that carries a baby toward easy sleep is a comfort that lives in all of us, a longing for gentle motion and tender holding that never quite leaves. As the evening deepens and the quiet gathers around you, let yourself be carried too, as a rocked baby is carried down through the softening layers of the day toward the easy sleep that waits below. Let the gentle sway of rest take you, slowly and tenderly, the way it has always taken the smallest and most cherished among us, down into the quiet and into sleep. Of all the sounds that soothe a newborn toward sleep, the oldest is a heartbeat, that steady and familiar rhythm a baby knew through every moment before it was born. It is the first lullaby any of us ever heard sung, not in words, but in the slow, constant beat of a nearby heart. Held close to a chest, near that gentle pulse a newborn settles into deep calm, meeting again the sound that filled its whole life before birth. The heartbeat asks nothing and teaches nothing. It only reassures, beating, slow and steady, telling a baby in the oldest language there is that all is well. Let yourself rest now in the thought of that gentle rhythm, the slow and steady beat that has soothed every newborn there has ever been. It beats within you too, the same quiet pulse, faithful and constant, carrying you through this day, as it has carried you through all your days, whether you noticed it or not. There is something deeply comforting in this to hold on to tonight. The oldest lullaby was never made of words, but of a heartbeat, close and steady, and that lullaby beats on within you, still a rhythm you have carried since before you can remember. As the night settles softly around you, let that steady beat soothe you the way it soothes a newborn, slow and sure and unhurried. You need not listen for it. It is simply there, faithful beneath everything. The oldest comfort you have ever known. Let it carry you gently now, as it once carried you before you had a name, down into the quiet and toward sleep. Picture a newborn, wrapped snugly and kept warm, loosening at last into deep and peaceful sleep, the kind of sleep in which so much of its quiet growing is done. Held warm and safely enclosed, a baby lets go of waking and sinks into rest. And in that rest, its small body and busy brain do their gentle essential work. There is a deep letting go in a warm and wrapped baby's sleep, a softening of the whole small self as it releases the day and settles into the depths of rest. Warmth and gentle enclosure tell a newborn it is safe, and only in that safety can it loosen fully and sink down into the deep sleep where growing happens. Comfort opens the door to rest. Let yourself feel something of that same warm loosening now as you settle into the quiet of this night. Feel the pull toward rest, the way the body softens when it is warm and safe, the way the mind grows still and heavy as sleep draws near. You are safe here, warm and held by the quiet, free to let go of the day and sink toward rest. There is a gentle invitation in this to accept tonight. The deep sleep a wrapped and warm baby sinks into is the same deep sleep that waits for you now, the kind of rest in which the body mends and the mind grows quiet and whole. As the night wraps softly around you, let yourself loosen into it the way a warm and safe baby loosens into sleep, releasing everything you have carried, sinking gently down through the soft layers of the evening into the deep and healing. Rest where you too are quietly made whole. As a newborn sleeps, its brain is far from idle. Quietly in the depths of rest, it weaves the moments of its day into lasting shape, gathering what it has taken in and settling it gently into place. Sleep is where a baby's brain does much of its quiet building, sorting the new into the known. All the faces and sounds and sensations of a newborn's waking hours are worked over in sleep, strengthened and knit into the growing structure of the mind. What seemed only a jumble of moments while awake is quietly given order in rest, woven softly into the fabric of a slowly forming self. The day is not lost in sleep, but kept and made part of the baby. This is a quiet mercy that belongs to you as well on nights like this one. As you sleep, your own mind does something similar, gathering the day you have lived, settling it, letting go of what it can, and keeping what it needs, weaving the hours softly into who you are. Sleep tends to us all this way, sorting and settling what waking leaves unfinished. There is a deep comfort in this to rest in tonight. You need not hold on to the day any longer, need not carry it or sort it or make sense of it now. Sleep will do that quiet work, the way it does for a newborn, gathering the day and weaving it gently into place while you rest. So let the day go now, and let sleep take it up. As the quiet deepens around you, trust that what mattered will be kept, and what can be released will be released. All of it tended softly in sleep, while you sink toward the rest you have earned. And let the night carry the rest. In the end, so much of what soothes a newborn returns to one simple thing: being held. To be gathered close, warm and near, tells a baby without a single word that it is safe, that it is loved, that it is not alone. It is the oldest comfort there is and the deepest. A newborn cannot yet understand any reassurance spoken to it, cannot grasp a promise or a word of love, but it understands being held, understands the warmth and closeness of arms that gather it, near, and in that wordless holding it, feels more surely than any words could tell it that all is well. To be held is to be told in the only language a newborn knows that it is safe. And perhaps that is something none of us ever quite outgrow, this deep knowing that to be held is to be safe, even now. At the end of a long day, there is comfort in the thought of being gathered up and held in, feeling wordlessly that we are cared for and not alone. It is a comfort we first knew as newborns and carry quietly ever after. So let this be the thought that holds you now as the night settles fully in. Imagine yourself gathered gently up, warm and safe, and near the way a newborn is held. And let that imagined holding soothe you toward rest. You are safe here in the quiet of this night, held softly by the darkness and the stillness, free at last to let everything go. There is nothing more you need to do, nothing more to carry or to solve. You need only rest now, held gently by the quiet as a newborn rests in loving arms. Thank you for spending this time here with me. Until next time, good night.